Chapter 1051. Everyone had looks of confusion on their faces as they heard that, but Matilda's eyes widened as her face displayed a look of astonishment. You remembered? She voiced out with a tone of disbelief. Of course I did, Gustav responded with a slight nod. A smile appeared on Matilda's face as her eyes turned teary. But there will still be a few processes they'll have to go through to make that happen, which would also involve asking for practically an army since it's a war. But if the MBO doesn't give permission, we'll have to do this on our own, Gustav explained. What exactly are we talking about here? He inquired. I'll brief you all in the future since it's quite the long story, or maybe Matilda will do the honors, Gustav responded. They'll be going on a lot of intergalactic travels after ISOP, so this will be killing two birds with one stone, he added. Everyone felt the coming days will be a whole lot interesting with Gustav in the picture. He was always running into crazy situations, or crazy situations were coming to find him. Hendrik will be joining the platoon, so you all will be the first members of my platoon as well as its leaders, Gustav announced. Oh? Interesting, that's cool. Everyone was surprised Gustav was finally letting Hendrik in, but they were all in support of this. Hendrik would be a great addition to the team since he wasn't in any way weak. The kid still had the highest potential amongst all of the MBO cadets, while Gustav was seen as the best mixed blood of this generation. They felt both brothers would undoubtedly shake the universe in the future. Anyways, I'll get the form required to recruit you all into my platoon, so you all make sure to put in the required details so we can get this whole process over with as soon as possible, Gustav voiced out. The days went by very quickly, and during this time Gustav had managed to get every one of them to officially join his platoon. No one was below the lance rank in their group, so it was easy to deal with the process of adding them to his platoon. During this time they had checked out different missions they could undertake either as a group or in singles. There were still 3 weeks left before the ISOP training began, so Gustav reckoned they could complete low-starred missions in that duration and improve their chances of increasing their ranks. While doing this, they were also having daily training with Gustav. It was the job of the leader of a platoon to watch out for the officers under them and make sure they kept growing and increasing in strength. It was Gustav's job to train them now since they were already out of the MBO, and made sure they remained ever ready for missions. Another week had gone by at this point, and today was another day they were training together within one of the training structures in the second base. Gustav stood in the middle of a plain-grounded area with everyone surrounding him. Anyone that can land a hit on me can skip training for the next week. That's a dangerous offer, Gus. He voiced out with a light chuckle. Even if you're stronger than all of us, at least one person is guaranteed to successfully land a hit, Timmy voiced out next. And who says that one person is gonna be you? Gustav responded with a daring look and a smirk. Oh, you, that was sharp, Ria stated with a burst of laughter. Challenge accepted, Timmy said with a decisive tone. That's good, none of you, including you Elevra, will be able to touch me, Gustav voiced out next. I will make you eat your words, Gustav, Elevra said with a serious look. I'm counting on it. Gustav still maintained the smirk on his face as he voiced out. You have no idea how fast I have become, do you? Angie voiced out as she felt neglected. Your speed means nothing, Angie, you are weak, Gustav stated in response. Zhotsowis. A third horn grew out of Angie's forehand as her energy expanded intensely. I will touch you before you even get the chance to blink, Angie voiced with a triggered tone. That was phrased a bit too suspiciously. He said from the corner. You all can put in your best efforts, use your best ability and practically anything at your disposal, but you have 5 minutes to try and make contact with me, Gustav explained while setting up a timer. Everyone took battle stances at this point as they prepared for Gustav to give the go-ahead. After 5 minutes I will attack if no one has managed to make contact with me, Gustav announced. They all fanned out, giving Gustav space but still surrounding him. Your time starts now. Gustav's mouth was still open from saying now, which proved he just finished the sentence, yet Angie had already arrived in front of him. Sweetie! She shot her fist forward with a smirk on her face as everything around her had turned slow. This is gonna hurt, but you deserve it, my love, she said internally without a shred of remorse. However, in the next instant Gustav's mouth that were still wide open closed up as his eyeballs, which were initially still focused up ahead, moved downwards. The instant his eyes locked on Angie, he moved to the side. Swash! Angie's figure blasted past him with intense speed, generating winds across the place. Everyone else had wide eyes as they spotted Angie far behind Gustav. Meanwhile, they were still in the same position as before because Gustav just started the timer. They already knew what happened and charged forward to attack Gustav as well. A vortex appeared behind Gustav just as Angie was speeding backwards, which ended up making her appear in a different place while Yes hand phased out of it. Chapter 1052. With the lightning blitz, Gustav could travel over 600,000 feet in an instant, but Angie could do the same and even better when she had activated the third horn mode. Despite it being an instant, which meant less than a second, Angie had already caught up to him within milliseconds and was about to make contact with him in the lightning state. Gustav had to cancel the skill midway and reappeared back more than 100,000 feet away. Angie couldn't easily cancel her speed and ended up moving past another 100,000 feet before stopping. Everyone else in the previous position all had looks of disbelief as they saw both of them disappeared. They quickly began charging after Gustav despite not being as fast. He opened up a vortex, closing in the distance quickly while Angie began to speed back, and Gustav also turned backwards and sped off, leaving her to chase him. At this point only around 30 seconds had gone by, but even with these few 30 seconds, they had come to realize it wouldn't be so easy catching Gustav. Let's surround him and attack at the same time. Someone is definitely bound to touch him, Ildris voiced out to the rest. Tell that to Angie too, he stated. Ildris opened his eyes at this point, causing the entire vicinity to turn into black and white. He turned into a circular wave and disappeared, reappearing right in front of Angie and latching onto her due to one of his abilities. We have to attack at the same time, Ildris voiced out the instant she stopped running. Swoosh! Gustav had reappeared in another position at this point, and they were all charging in his direction once more. Rhea stomped on the ground, causing himself to sink into it as it began to take him forward in Gustav's direction as well. Vera threw seeds to the ground and caused a forestry type of vegetative environment to sprout in a couple of seconds. Vines and multiple spiky branches sprouted out at her command, ready to attack Gustav. Meanwhile, Elevra Third Eye had been revealed and was ready to fire destructive beams at Gustav. They all surrounded Gustav from every direction and slowly closed in on his position. They waited for Ildris' signal to attack. So you all plan to attack me at the same instant? Pretty good plan, Gustav said with a smile. At this point over 1 minute had passed, and there were still over 3 minutes left, so they still had time. Good plan, right? At least one person will touch you even if the rest of us fail. Ildris and he voiced out as they prepared to attack. Not a bad plan, but you all will still fail, Gustav said with a smile. The group wondered where this confidence was coming from because logically speaking, no matter how strong Gustav was, there were up to 10 in number, so at least one person would be able to touch him even if it was just a little. Ildris was a bit suspicious that Gustav still had something up his sleeves, but this didn't stop him. He gave them the signal and Angie grabbed hold of Timmy. She flung him forward with her inhumane speed while everyone else dashed forward at the same speed. They arrived before Gustav in no time, and hands could be seen stretching towards Gustav's body from every direction. One was heading towards his belly, another towards his chest, nape, face, back, chin, back of his head, but thighs, sides, and arms. Every side was covered, and there was not a single open spot that Gustav could exploit. Even if he cranked up his speed by a whole lot, he would definitely make contact with someone while trying to get out of this encirclement. Angie appeared above him in the next instant as well, with her legs swinging down from above with the intention of kicking his head as well. It looked they would make contact with Gustav, and there was no hope of getting out of the current predicament. A smirk suddenly appeared on Gustav's face once more as his eyes displayed a scarlet with a mixture of gold glow. His lips parted ways elegantly as he voiced out a single word. Stop! Whoosh hesm. Golden outburst of energy blasted forth from his being, spreading across the vicinity, and in the next instant, as everyone's body paused in mid-air. They all had looks of astonishment and disbelief in their eyes as their bodies just paused in place. They had lost all control over their bodies except for their eyeballs, which could only look around. Besides that, they were unable to break out of this unusual hold spread by the unfathomable energy that had just burst forth from Gustav's figure. What the hell? How is this even possible? How is he doing this? What in the world? They all had these thoughts circulating in their minds as they couldn't wrap their heads around how this was happening. Gustav slowly moved forward and sideways, shifting out of their encirclement after a few seconds. He moved towards their back and brought out a device to take a picture of everyone paused in place. He was standing behind while they all paused behind with a space in the middle of their encirclement. This is a nice picture, Gustav voiced out after checking it, and proceeded to keep his device. I warned you guys you wouldn't be able to touch me, Gustav voiced out after a bit of silence. They all still couldn't speak, so they remained in place silently. There's still 3 minutes left. Just hold on, I'll release y'all after the time is up. After saying this, Gustav could sense that they were struggling to free themselves even more. However, Gustav knew just how powerful his Yarki was now, so the possibility of any one of them getting out of it was 0%. Especially when they were all Echo-ranked mixed bloods. Chapter 1053. She moved towards their back and brought out a device to take a picture of everyone paused in place. He was standing behind while they all paused behind with a space in the middle of their encirclement. This is a nice picture, Gustav voiced out after checking it, and proceeded to keep his device. I warned you guys you wouldn't be able to touch me, Gustav voiced out after a bit of silence. They all still couldn't speak, so they remained in place silently. There's still 3 minutes left. Just hold on, I'll release y'all after the time is up. After saying this, Gustav could sense that they were struggling to free themselves even more. However, Gustav knew just how powerful his Yarki was now, so the possibility of any one of them getting out of it was 0%. Especially when they were all Echo-ranked mixed bloods. Before he absorbed Gisadinum's cosmic superiority, his Yarki was already having effect on Kilo-ranked mixed bloods, so no doubt it was way more powerful right now than before. Gustav was currently not just using his Yarki but also another ability attributed to cosmic superiority. Yarki would only make their movements pause and cause their knees to buckle so they'd be on the ground, but this other ability caused every single one of them to pause in mid-air as well. Angie, who had leapt upwards, was suspended in mid-air as well as Rhea. It was truly a funny sight. The rest of the 3 minutes went by in a flash, and Gustav finally deactivated his cosmic superiority. Plop! 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 Everyone began falling from the air like sacks of rice. Ugh! Some of them groaned as they picked themselves up from the ground and stared in Gustav's direction, waiting for an explanation. What the hell was that man? He was the first to yell out impatiently with a shocked tone. Pfft! Gustav couldn't control the urge to laugh after seeing the look on his face. All right, time to school you guys a little, Gustav stated, causing their attention to be focused on him even more. What I just used there is a power called cosmic superiority. As you can see, it rendered you all immobile at my command. This is a privilege owned by cosmic superior beings all across the universe, Gustav explained. You mean, there are others that can use this power as well? Elevra asked with a tone of fascination. Yes, but there are very few all across the entire universe. Probably less than my 10 fingers. That's how rare cosmic superior beings are, and anybody could be blessed by the cosmos and achieve cosmic superiority no matter what planet they come from, Gustav answered. Cosmic superior beings literally defies universal laws with their power and are above normal supernatural beings who can be bent to their will no matter how powerful, he added. How long have you had this? Ildris questioned. I've had this since before we began our first year in camp, Gustav replied with a smile. That means you could have won any battle easily. You could have been winning fights instantly if you made use of it, Timi and Rhea voiced out with tones of realization. Everyone had similar looks on their faces as they wondered why Gustav never made use of this. I would, but I had to keep it hidden that I had such a power, Gustav stated. Does it work on everyone and anyone? He inquired. It has a limit on the amount of levels a being is stronger than the user. I wouldn't be able to successfully use it on someone like Miss Amy, but beings lower than her level, or 4 levels and above higher than I am, would be slightly affected. Still, I can use it on a number of people that are stronger than me and easily overturn the situation, while those who are weaker than me have no chance of fighting against it. Gustav explained. It would be way crazier if it could work on anyone. You would instantly become the most powerful person in the world. Angie voiced out. It's already crazy that he has such an ability in the first place. Why did you decide to reveal it to us now? Falco questioned. Because I have been hiding a lot of my abilities from the world all this time. I had to keep them hidden to stay safe, but I can't keep doing that forever. I intend to stop hiding my abilities and put them on full display during ISUP. We'll be meeting very powerful opponents with lots of experience. Thousands of years old and very strong. If I hold back, and sure well lose. Gustav clarified. You mean to say there are more crazy abilities you have besides this? He questioned. This is the cream of the crop, but yes, I do have more I never revealed openly except in very dangerous situations. Gustav responded. They all stared at Gustav like he was a monstrous existence at this point. They felt it now made sense how he came out of so many situations without dying. They couldn't imagine how Aesop would go with someone like Gustav on their sides, but at the very least they weren't so tensed as before. Time was relative for planets all across galaxies in the universe, and they knew this. While no one beyond the age of 20 was allowed to participate in Aesop due to the Earth's rotation around the Sun, which took 365 days, for other planets it could take thousands of days or hundreds of thousands of days before their planet would finish revolving around the Sun. Their own 20 years would be equivalent to thousands of years for Earth, which of course would make the opponents way stronger in some places. The time thing was truly beneficiary for some planets and bad for others, but nothing could be done to change this. This was how it always was. Chapter 1054. Are you not bothered the MBO or the world government would see you as a threat when you start to reveal these abilities you've been hiding all this time? Eldris questioned. They can get wary, but they can't lay a finger on me, at least not anymore. Gustav said with a tone of relief. It's finally time to stop hiding, he said internally as the bloodline energies within his body began chiming in response like they were ready for the show Gustav was going to pull in the upcoming ISUP. Anyways, now y'all understand why I said you'd never be able to touch me. Gustav chuckled at this point. No fair, that's too powerful. Engie and Glade voiced out together. Engie really felt her speed was now useless. The others didn't complain, but it was obvious they were still having a hard time comprehending just what type of power this was. Which brings me to the other reason I used it against you all here. Their attention was once more focused on Gustav as they heard this. I want to teach you all how to fight against the power of cosmic superiority. Gustav added. What? But didn't you just say it was... I know what I said. Gustav cut them short. But it's not impossible. Someone has broken free from the power of my cosmic superiority before. Gustav revealed. They all had astonished expressions as they heard that. The energy surge from Gustav earlier rendered them so useless that they had all discarded the thought from their heads that it could be fought against. And no, this person was not overly powerful than I was at the time. I was also weaker as well, but the point is, it's possible. Gustav added. We don't know what we will meet in ISOP, and the chances of battling with the other cosmic superior being is not 0%, so I want to teach you all how to fight against cosmic superiority before the date for ISOP arrives. Gustav explained his point of reasoning. How though? It feels impossible. Timmy asked. I will start by using the lowest powered outburst of my hierarchy. We'll have to start from there so you guys can familiarize yourselves with how it feels to submit to the power. Gustav replied. Everyone had fired up looks on their faces at this point as they looked forward to the teachings. We'll still be training normally and conducting missions in the process too. The group went on to discuss the last mission Timmy, Falco, and the others went on that involved the Jenxidus. Falco stated that wanted them to go on group missions that involved the Slarkov terrorist group. However, Guadav was not too interested in them at the moment. He told them they would spend a lot of time if they focused on such a mission, and they didn't really have that kind of time at the moment. The whole situation of uprooting the terrorists from Earth will take a lot of time, and Gustav was sure it wouldn't be an easy task, so he didn't want to get involved. Young Joe-related situations had given him too much trouble, so he had decided he would leave this one in the hands of other MBO officers. His focus was now on intergalactic travels, which would be a constant thing for him in the future. In a flash, another week went by, and during this time some members of the platoons had completed solo or duo missions. As more missions were completed by members of the platoon, the merit of the platoon would increase. Platoons always received what was called reputation points from these merits, and it decided their ranking in the MBO. Platoon ranking was a thing in the MBO, and at the moment Gustav's platoon was below 2000 on the ranking. He didn't really care about this because his platoon was still new. They had other priorities in the meantime. After a few more days of training, Endrik returned from his solo mission and joined them. At this point the platoon now consisted of 11 members besides Gustav. The platoon with the lowest number of members in the MBO, and it was generally made up of new generation MBO officers. It had garnered quite the ridicule and laughs from other MBO, but Gustav didn't care about any of those at this point. They were truly just starting out, and their focus was on other things, so they could be less bothered about their platoon being a laughing stock in the meantime. ISUP was approaching, and ISUP training was beginning in a few days. Endrik only joined Gustav and the others to train for a few more days before it was finally time to leave the second base for ISUP training. Niagara Islands, Endrik voiced out. Interesting choice of location, although I've never been there. He stated before chuckling a bit. Just don't get beaten by a non-MBO officers, the selection for main team members come first. Timmy voiced out. The main issue would be the others who have already been officers for more than a year despite being only 20 years old or lesser, Falco said with a logical tone. It's best we check out Niagara Islands well, because knowing the location properly can be advantageous. Matilda voiced out as well. I doubt we'll be having the participation battle in the open though, Angie said with a contemplative expression. The group was seated together in the living room the night before the ISUP training would officially begin. They were discussing how things would be in the training location, which was called Niagara Islands. What do you think, Gustav? Matilda questioned, causing everyone to turn and stare in Gustav's direction. I think you lots should stop arguing and just go to bed. Your flight leaves by 7 in the morning and you'll be dragged into the selection battle that will determine whether or not you'll be on the main team. The only thing that should be on your minds is getting a spot on the main team, Gustav voiced out. Chapter 1055s. And yes, your selection battle will most likely be in the open, but since it's an Iceland area, it will only be advantageous to mixed bloods with water-type abilities, so expect the disadvantage, but work through it and win, he added. The entire place descended into silence for a bit as their faces shone looks of contemplation. Dinner? Gustav said as he stood to his feet. Yeah, count me in, I'm famished. They all voiced out one after the other. Letty, cook for you guys then, Gustav said with a mischievous look. Really? He voiced out with an excited tone as he stood to his feet. No way. Definitely not. I refuse to eat poison in the name of dinner. Timmy, Ildris and Falco voiced out strongly. Endrik had a look of confusion on his face, wondering if he missed something. Come on guys, I promise I'm a better cook now, he said with a pleading tone. No! No! Oh hell no! Bahahaha! Everyone bursted into laughter at this point. The night went by very quickly and the next morning arrived. The group packed their things and left to the second base revetment. Gustav followed them, but he was actually heading to a different location. He got into a separate aircraft from theirs and left the base. The group also left after a bit. They were being flown towards Niagara Islands while Gustav was heading towards his mansion in one of the desert areas. It's been a while since I last visited there, but at least they'll be able to enter seclusion without any issues now, Gustav thought as he sat in the aircraft. He still had transportation issues and was unable to find a level 7 dimensional bracelet after checking for the past 3 weeks. Gustav had also gone from base to base just to see if he could find any, but it was to no avail. Not even level 5 dimensional bracelets were available because dimensional bracelets were always a rare commodity as a whole. Gustav had made contact with the Grand General in charge of the second base some time ago, and asked if it was possible for it to be made, but he mentioned their partnership with Joe Technologies had been cut off. Despite the controversial issues, Joe Technologies was still the best in then world, and they were specifically in charge of creating these types of gadgets and tools for the MBO. The new technology companies could not hold a candle to them, and in the meantime were still trying to reach that height, so it was tasking for them to creating cutting-edge gadgets or weaponry like Joe Technologies. In the case of the dimensional bracelet, Gustav had placed a custom order for a level 7 bracelet with the new technology company the MBO was in league with. However, they told him he would have to wait for many months as they were not sure they were capable of replicating it accurately. Gustav didn't know whether to wait for them or just use the favor he had with Grand Commander Cheyenne to acquire a new one. Anyhow things went, he had to make sure he did something about the whole situation soon. In a couple of hours Gustav arrived at his house with the MBO aircraft. This area was a closed-off city at the edge of a desert. It wasn't a large city and was only fairly popular, so it barely got attractions from the rest of the world. Gustav's mansion was butter-colored with a few red carvings at different spots. It had a runway and parking hangar for aircraft. Aside this, there were also a few garages and 2 hover cars were parked within. The mansion was very large with an exquisite design and multiple balcony areas with luxurious-looking windows. There was also a waterfront and bright lights with a small statue in front of a floating blood above the palm of a lady with wings. Every area just looked absolutely beautiful no matter the angle one stared at it from. The instant Gustav got off the aircraft, he felt something was off. The aircraft took off in the next instant, since they had already fulfilled their orders of dropping him off, and they greeted Gustav respectfully while taking off. Gustav nodded at them but adopted a calm face as he moved towards the house. "Welcome, Sir Gustav, what are your orders?" As the main door slid open, a bot moved towards him while voicing out. Gustav took off his jacket and passed it over to the bot, and proceeded to unbutton a few of his upper button t-shirt before moving towards the living room. He heaved a heavy sigh that sounded like he was tired before moving towards the sofa. The living room was massive with a big holographic TV switching on the moment he arrived within. The tiles on the floor were made of rare glass materials that made it look like one was standing on the surface of the ocean. Gustav sat on the sofa and leaned backwards as he pushed his body down a bit. He closed his eyes as his face adopted a relaxed state in his current position. Moments turned into seconds and seconds turned into minutes. At this point it looked like Gustav had passed out on the sofa. All of a sudden, in 4 silver-colored humanoid-looking technological suits appeared out of thin air all around the sofa Gustav was sitting on. The instant they appeared around the sofa, Gustav opened his eyes, but at the same moment, they were each holding on to the ends of a golden glowing net that was spread across the entire sofa area above Gustav. The moment they released their grasp from the net, it fell and covered Gustav up completely. Thurish sizzling sounds rang out as 4 bolts connected to the floor from the 4 corners of the net, trapping Gustav in place. Chapter 1056. Hold on for an hour or two. Gustav looked around and spotted more of these silver-colored metallic suits appearing out of thin air. Target Gustav Crimson has been acquired, one of them voiced out as he moved to Gustav's front. Their voices sounded tweaked with a mixture of raspy and robotic. There were more than 8 of them in the living room at this point, and he knew there were people within these technological suits. It's sealing my bloodlines, and the suits they use completely hides from the superwoman's senses of a mixed blood, although I did sense their presence to an extent, Gustav analyzed internally. Interesting cutting-edge technology, J voiced out as he tried getting out of the net. It is futile. Even an Omega-ranked mixed blood will have their bloodlines sealed if they were trapped in one of these. Another one voiced out as they spotted Gustav trying to get out of the net. Oh, I know it's truly a good piece. I intend on acquiring it, so I will not be damaging it in any way, Gustav voiced in response. Dash. You won't be getting out of it either. Another one of them voiced out. Dash. Prepare to transfer the target out of here, the leader commanded. These fools never learn, but it's good, Gustav stated while shaking his head as he spotted the figures moving closer to him. Jinxidus, y'all didn't do your research well enough before trying to abduct me, he added as he sat up properly. Dash. It's no surprise you know who we are, but you are still not getting out of. The leader was still speaking when Gustav stood to his feet and pulled the net off himself with a casual expression. The leader, the others, they couldn't believe their eyes as they saw Gustav get out of the trap without stressing. Their brains had not clicked fast enough to act when Gustav uttered a single word. Tremble! The tone and intense power in his voice spread across the vicinity, causing every single one of them to buckle. They were unable to struggle against the unfathomable power as they began to drop to their knees. Plop! 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 Gustav held the net in his hands and scrutinized it for a bit, ignoring the kneeling bunch in front of him. Thanks for the gift. This will certainly come in handy, Gustav voiced out before keeping it in his storage device. Step! 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 He slowly began to step forward majestically as he walked past some of them, all of who were still kneeling on the ground unable to free themselves from the hold of his power. I see you brought company, Gustav voiced out as his senses traveled more than a radius of 50,000 feet. He could sense the approaching aircraft from the north. I shall welcome them with open arms as well, he added with a smirk. They all felt chills crawl down their spines as they heard this, but they were unable to warn the rest of their comrades even if they wanted to. They all felt chills crawl down their spines as they heard this, but they were unable to warn the rest of their comrades even if they wanted to. Two whitish aircraft could be seen flying above a desert area with very quick speeds. The yellow sands could be seen far and wide across the place, but in a few seconds, a small city could be spotted up ahead. All of a sudden, dash. Emergency! The team in charge of acquiring the targets have been compromised. Dash. Emergency! The team in charge of acquiring the targets have been compromised. Dash. Emergency! The team in charge of acquiring the targets have been compromised. A message was being passed across within both aircraft. The person who was voicing this out was like a commander, and didn't give any other explanations besides the other team being compromised. Dash. Turn around and head back to base right now. Dash. Turn around and head back to base right now. The commander voiced out once more, causing the pilots and a few other members of the Jinxidus within the aircraft to display looks of confusion. Sir, what of the others? One of the pilots voiced out through the communication system. Dash. Forget about them and head back right now. The commander yelled out once more. The pilots decided to follow instructions at this point and started turning both aircraft around. However, at the same moment a wind-breaking sound rang out heavily. Thrya! It sounded like the skies were being split in two as a figure was spotted bursting through the clouds at insane speed. Beep! 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 The alarms within the aircraft rang out crazily as the radar gave proximity alert. However, they barely had enough time to react before the object, or rather person approaching, arrived right in front of the aircraft on the left. Bang! A loud sound of collision rang out as the aircraft paused in the air. Dash. I can't move! Dash. We're stuck! We're stuck! They found out they were unable to completely turn around or even move anymore, no matter how much they tried. Dash. Oh my God! It's him! Dash. He has us in his grasp! Dash. Echo 2, run! The pilots as well as the other Jinxidus members within the aircraft yelled crazily. They had already spotted the figure with dirty blonde hair and black t-shirt on the cams holding into the aircraft from the side. The other aircraft had completely done a 180 degrees turn at this point and sped forward crazily. Gustav, who was holding on to the other one, ripped it in two halves by pulling from side to side. Arahurg! Kairar! The passengers and pilots yelled like pigs being slaughtered as they fell from the skies crazily. "Activate your suit!" one of them voiced out as they fell through the air. Gustav, who had ripped the aircraft in two, didn't even wait around for the ones falling from the air. He had already sped forward with immense speed. Swoosh, he bolted across the sky crazily, parting the clouds with his speedy figure. The aircraft that thought it had gotten away suddenly saw a figure appear in front of it in the next instant. Chapter 1057 S-Bang. Gustav's palms were pushed forward and the aircraft collided with it, causing the aircraft to instantly pause in mid-air. The part of the aircraft with Gustav's palms on them had a big dent due to the sudden pause in mid-air. "Come on now, you just arrived, where do you think you're going?" Gustav questioned as a wide grin appeared on his face. "What kind of host would I be if I didn't give you lots a bit of entertainment?" he added as he held the aircraft in place. Chills ran down the spines of the pilots and everyone else within the aircraft at the moment. Not only did this type of aircraft weigh almost 500,000 kilograms, and with how fast it was moving, the amount of destructive force it was carrying was enough to crash through tons of high-rise building without its momentum reducing. They had heard about how powerful Gustav was for his bloodline rank, but they felt the information given was too inaccurate compared to how powerful he truly was. The pilot within gritted his teeth as he pushed a button within the cockpit, causing more thrusters to appear behind the aircraft. Boom! The thrusters shot out like crazy, and these were supposed to increase the speed of the aircraft by 10 times its original speed. To their utmost surprise and disbelief, Gustav remained in front of the aircraft unyielding. "Time to join your companions on the ground," Gustav voiced out before pushing his fingers deeper into the outer covering of the aircraft. He pulled both hands towards the side, ripping the entire spacecraft in two. "Erf! Kyrhe!" the Jenxidus members yelled out as they fell through the air. Gustav remained suspended in mid-air as he stared at the falling figures. God Eyes has been activated. His sight phased forward with intense speed, reaching the area he had ripped the first spacecraft apart. He spotted some of the Jenxidus members fully clad in the same technological suits as the others he dealt with in his living room. "This was a really wonderful welcome, by the way," Gustav muttered with a smile as he dashed across the sky once more. FYI, the Jenxidus members who had started flying were helping out the others who didn't have the suit. The instant they spotted Gustav's fast figure flying in their direction from up ahead, they activated their weapons system. Thwy! 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 Multiple blue-colored laser beams shot out speedily. "Rubbish!" Gustav muttered as he pushed his hand forward. A gravitational force spread forth from his being which ended up deflecting the multiple projectiles headed for his direction. Gustav arrived in front of one of them in the next instant. "Stay down," he voiced out while sending out a fist. Bang! His fist collided with the chest of this Jenxidus members, blasting a hole through his suit as he plummeted downwards with the person he was carrying. Gustav proceeded to charge towards the next one, and in a matter of moments, multiple blasting sounds rang out. Bang! Bang bang! Bang! In the blink of an eye, the entire sky was clear of these white-suited members. All of them had fallen into the desert sand below. Gustav turned around at this point and bolted across the air once more. The same scene as earlier played out as some of these Jenxidus members also activated the technology suits to help them in descending from the sky slowly. Bang! 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 In a couple of seconds, Gustav had cleared the skies in this particular location as well, and every single Jenxidus members had plummeted to the desert sands below. Gustav finally floated downwards at this point towards the assailant. "It's time for you lots to follow me back. Oh well, I guess you can't, so I'll be taking you all back with me." Gustav smiled cheekily as he stared at them. Some of them were trying to pull themselves out of the sands, and some had already passed out. However, none of them were seriously injured as the sand had cushioned their fall like Gustav expected. Gravitational displacement has been activated. The gravitational force around him suddenly changed as these Jenxidus members began to float. Some of them were pulled out of the sand by the gravitational displacement, and even some of the desert sand floated into the air. Let's go, boys, Gustav stated as he charged forward once more. All of these figures were firmly grabbed in place by his gravitational displacement, as he flew forward with multiple bodies floating in the air after him. He arrived at the other place where he dealt with the others, and the same thing happened. Gustav proceeded to fly into the air in the direction of his home as the other floated in the air along with him. Looks like my living room has been redecorated, Gustav voiced out as he stood within his living room with a slightly astonished look. There were headless bodies everywhere with blood splattered across the floors, walls, and his sofas. The bodies of the Jenxidus members lay on his floor while still clad in the technological suit but headless. The ones he had dealt with were outside all incapacitated, but the ones he left here that tried to abduct him were all dead. Gustav squatted and stared at a part of the blood puddles mixed with brain matter. God Eyes has been activated. His eyes zoomed in on a very small piece of unknown physical matter that looked like it could easily go unnoticed. It was as small as the size of the pores in human skin. It was practically microscopic level, but Gustav was able to point it out as something foreign that wasn't a part of the human body. Desensitized material size reduction. Gustav noticed that the original size of this item had been tampered with. He also noticed it was still missing a big piece, but even despite that, Gustav was able to study what was left of the item to uncover what it was. A bomb and a camera mixed together, that's some crazy tech, Gustav muttered with a look of fascination as he discovered what it was after careful examination. Gustav still considered himself a man of science since he had messed with so many science-related items, and even studied many researches related to it as well. This made it easy for him to figure things out in situations like this because he would link everything to what he had previously studied. I guess it makes sense now how they knew you were coming and started turning around, the system voice in his mind. Yeah, Gustav said as he stood uprightly. But how come the others I captured are not dead yet? Gustav thought out loud as he turned to stare at his entrance. The others he captured from the aircraft were still very much alive despite being incapacitated. If these ones also had bombs and cameras implanted in their brains, they should be dead like the ones in his living room right now. Or so he thought. Gustav couldn't wrap his head around why they hadn't killed those. Jenxidus, I know you can see and hear me right now. Even though there's brain matter splattered all across my living room, I can tell the cameras are still functional, Gustav said as he chuckled lightly while speaking. You've poked the hornet's nest. I really wasn't intending to add you lots to my agenda, but now. A scarlet glow appeared in Gustav's eyes as he got to this point. I promise to end your organization and wipe you lots out, he said with a powerful tone that caused the entire vicinity to tremble. Anytime Gustav spoke like this, he would also exude streams of COM-6 superior energy involuntarily, and he had no idea what this such was causing. His cosmic superiority was now at least 3 times more powerful than before, which had some boons even Gustav had not figured out yet. Do you recall I got rid of your predecessor who was 100 times smarter and shrewd than you lots? Gustav said with a dangerous tone. Don't worry about looking for me. I'll come to you lots myself, he added as his grin widened. All right, good chat. Atomic disintegration has been activated. Purification, he voiced out as he stretched out his right hand. A milky-colored glow fell from his hand onto the floor. Zion in a bright light engulfed the entire living room, and in the next instant, everything within was disintegrated. Blood, bodies, sofa, walls. Looks like I didn't properly control the quantity, Gustav said as his face displayed a oops expression. Might have to reconstruct, he added as he walked out of the house. At this point he had already called Gradier Xanatus, explaining the current situation to him and telling him not to bring a lot of MBO officers here because he still wanted this place to remain a secret. Chapter 1058. At this point he had already called Gradier Xanatus, explaining the current situation to him and telling him not to bring a lot of MBO officers here because he still wanted this place to remain a secret. Gustav had to hold on, and in the process he began to interrogate the members of Jenxidus he abducted. He wanted to find out why the others didn't get the same treatment with the ones he first dealt with, and how their heads hadn't exploded yet. God Eyes has been activated, Gustav looked through the skulls of these Jenxidus members one after the other first, while they were still unconscious. These 4 have the bombs and cams in their brain. Gustav spotted 4 out of the Jenxidus members who had mini cams and bombs implanted in their heads. He moved towards them and stretched out his hand. "These ones have to go," Gustav muttered as his palms glowed with milky-colored light. "Atomic disintegration has been activated." Gustav proceeded to wrap his hand around the first one head and disintegrated it into nothingness with atomic disintegration. The entire head was gone, from the brain, to the skull, to the blood and practically every tissue. Nothing was left after Gustav was done. Plop! The headless body fell to the floor in the next instant. Gustav proceeded to grab hold of the next Jenxidus member with a bomb and cam implanted in their skull and performed the same action. In an unknown location, a group of masked people watched an holographic display together. The entire vicinity was dark and there were hundreds of them clustered in this unknown location together watching this footage. They could see a figure with dirty blonde hair destroying heads one after the other. The holographic screens on display would lessen by one after he destroyed a head. Dash. Are we just going to sit back and watch him slaughter our kind like this? Dash. This is an unjust act against the Slakovs. Dash. Gustav Crimson is no hero. He is a villain and needs to be destroyed. These masked people began to yell out one after the other as the holographic screen only had one on display at the moment. Dash. He must be destroyed. As they yelled out, the figure on screen had his hand wrapped around the head of the last person who the footage seemed to be coming from. Don't worry, fools, they'll come for you lots. The figure on display voiced out before destroying the last head. TSSHSHHSHSHHHH static sounds rang out next as every of the holographic screens stopped displaying footage. The crowd began to yell out the injustice that they had just witnessed, and the atmosphere turned heated. Ting! A bright light suddenly landed on a particular area within this unknown structure. It fell upon a figure clad in silver-colored outfit and helmet. Everyone relax. The instant he voiced out, the place quietened. As you all know, Gustav Crimson isn't an easy opponent. He paused for a bit as he arrived at this point. Nonetheless, we will make sure to get rid of him as soon as possible, especially now that he seeks to rid the Earth of our freedom organization. The unknown silver-armored man voiced out once more. He will now be placed on our priority list. However, unlike this failed mission, we shall send powerful mixed bloods after him. After voicing this out, the entire place was filled with chatters once more. Some voiced out their surprise at this sudden decision, and others had different thoughts as well as opinions. Dash. How can we make use of mixed bloods when we're trying to get rid of them? Dash. Isn't that hypocrisy? Trying to use what we're fighting against? Some of them voiced out disagreements as well. Relax, everyone. The silver-armored man voiced out once more, causing the place to quieten. Look at it this way, we're using the opposition to get rid of the opposition. These idiots lack the unity we do. Pay them off and they'll be getting rid of each other without us having to put in a single effort. He paused a bit as he got to this point, noting the expressions of the audience in front of him that were starting to look favorable. Those fools would easily kill their fellow species for money since they're a corrupted bunch. We just have to use them to our advantage. This way we can even protect our kind better, since it would be dangerous sending our own kind after some of them. As you know, we value the lives of our brothers and sisters unlike those animals. At this point, cheers could be heard coming from every direction. With the explanation of this man in silver armor, the rest of the members currently in this location wholeheartedly agreed with the method they were going to use to get rid of Gustav. They were going to capitalize on the division between mixed bloods. You really redecorated the entire living room. Bradier Zanatus voiced out as he stood in Gustav's living room. Blame them. I still wonder how they figured out the location of my house. Gustav voiced in response. Might be sloppiness on the part of the world government, or with Jenxidus high-end technology, they could easily source out the information by hacking into the government database, or there could be a mole. Bradier Zanatus listed out these options, which Gustav nodded to. All which you have already thought about. Bradier Zanatus noted Gustav's expression. And more, but actually every single one of these options may be correct. We have Slakhovs working with the world government as well, Gustav voiced with a tone of analysis. So what was the reason the heads of the others didn't explode? Gradier Zanatus questioned as they moved outside. A few MBO officers could be seen moving the Jenkstadus members into an aircraft parked in Gustav's runway. They were all restrained and had some mouth guards strapped to their mouth as well, since it was recalled that the first Jenkstadus member Gradier Zanatus and Red Shadow caught committed suicide through his mouth. Chapter 1059. These ones are slightly higher in level compared to the others, Gustav disclosed. That's why they don't have cams and bombs implanted in their heads. Gradier Zanatus found this answer to be a little weird. They have a hierarchy, and in this hierarchy, once you're at a particular level, according to the leaders, the trust has been established, so they take out the head cam and bomb, but the lower leveled ones retain the cam and bomb implanted in their heads. Gustav explained. Whenever they're on missions, they send the teams mixed so the higher-ups or commanders get to see footage of what is happening in the mission location, which is why they were mixed in this one as well, he added. Gustav explained how the aircraft that was headed for his house to take him to whenever they were supposed to after subduing him, turned around before arriving here. It was all due to the cams, so they were aware of how Gustav had overpowered the others since they were watching. That's, how did you get them to spill? Gradier Zanatus was surprised Gustav got this much info out of them. Interrogation. By reaching into their minds, Gustav replied. Did you get their location though? Gradier Zanatus questioned. Unfortunately, the information I have revealed to you so far come from a collection of minds. I had to take different parts of information from separate minds before joining them, so I wasn't able to garner so much information. Their minds couldn't take any more before I got to the part where I could retrieve information about their hideout, Gus explained. Gradier Zanatus had a slightly disappointed look on his face as he heard this. Slarkovs have normal strength like humans, so they can't handle my ability like mixed bloods. But I did get the location they were supposed to deliver me to, Gustav disclosed. Really? Gradier Zanatus' face lit up with a look of interest. Yeah. Even though their mission ended up being a burst and they won't be expected, we could still check out that location, Gustav responded. It's definitely a good lead and the only one we have in the meantime as well, Gradier Zanatus stated. Also, I didn't completely destroy the aircraft, so the MBO technicians could go check out their map data to see if they can trace where they took off from, Gustav voiced out. They'll tell them to do just that, Gradier Zanatus replied. What do you want to do now? Gradier Zanatus questioned. I want to head to the location, Gustav replied. You definitely need a team. You don't know what you might meet there, Gradier Zanatus suggested. My team is currently unavailable, so I'll have to go myself, Gustav said while shrugging his shoulders. Then let me help you gather a new one, Gradier Zanatus voiced out once more. Nah, I prefer working alone anyways. Gustav shook his head slightly while responding. Then let me help you gather a new one, Gradier Zanatus voiced out once more. Nah, I prefer working alone anyways. Gustav shook his head slightly while responding. Then I will come with you, Gradier Zanatus stated. Huh. I won't back down on this one. Gradier Zanatus stood his ground. You don't have to watch out for me every time. I'm not a baby, I can handle it myself. Gustav indirectly turned Gradier Zanatus down. The young miss will be on my neck if you're put in harm's way again, Gradier Zanatus said. She's millions of miles away, don't worry, you're safe. Gustav chuckled. I insist, you'll slow me down. It's safer for you to stay back. What? I am still stronger than you are, and sure you don't believe that. Besides, I'm faster. Oh shit, I don't have my dimensional bracelet. Gustav suddenly recalled this. Which means you can't easily escape if something unexpected happens. I'm coming with. Gradier Zanatus closed off the argument with this. Gustav knew they'd keep this going for too long if he still decided to argue back, so he just let it end here. Alright, but you stay in the aircraft some distance away while I observe the location myself. I know how to remain unseen. Gustav felt a subtle approach would be better when they arrived at the location. Gradier Zanatus agreed to this term and they proceeded to head towards one of the aircraft. Despite being of higher rank in the MBO than Gustav, Gradier Xanatus was starting to look like a subordinate when it came to issues relating to Gustav. Gustav was only actually trying to protect him, just like he wanted to protect everyone he considered important in his life. Gradier Xanatus happened to be one of those people, and he would rather put himself in harm's way than any one of the people he cherished, because he never wanted a repetition of Boss Danzo's case. Gustav decided to head to the location this fast instead of waiting, mostly because his house was already a bust. During the time he was away, he expected it to get fixed so he would come back to a rebounded and cleared the place. The MBO was already taking care of the issues, so he wasn't bothered. He was also rethinking whether or not to continue living there in the meantime. After some time, Gustav decided he would still live there even though the location had gotten a little compromised. If they want to send more people after me, it would be perfect. Let them come, I will be expecting. This thought crossed Gustav's mind as there blazed across the sky in the aircraft. There was one thing that bothered Gustav the most. He didn't get this information from the others he interrogated with his mind, so it was even more intriguing, and he was interested in figuring it out. Why exactly are they after me? Gustav questioned internally with a look of curiosity. He felt this might have to do with the fact that he was responsible for ending their main sponsor and one of their founders, young Joe. Chapter 1060 Unedited. Still, Gustav also felt it might be more than that, and there was an ulterior motive. It was the first time he was seeing the Jenxitas trying to abduct a mixed blood instead of actually killing them. Anyhow things went now, he was sure they were now on each other's radar, and the two sides would not back down until one of them was gotten rid of. Chatter. 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 In the middle of a plain ice land that spanned across hundreds of miles, groups of youngsters could be seen clustered together. They stood in place and discussed with one another, causing the sound of chatters to reverberate across the entire vicinity. There are so many unknown faces here, Falco voiced out with a look of curiosity. There is no weak person here, Matilda said while looking around. These were all youngsters here, but everyone exuded powerful bloodline energy, as if in a bid to intimidate the others. Since 20 years is the limit, we definitely have some here who are below the age of 21 but up to 20 years already. They've had longer time to channel their bloodlines. Ildris analyzed why some were this powerful. Their group were amongst the set of MBO cadets that finished early, so they were still around 18 years old. Some of these contenders were over 2 years older than they were. Gustav was the only one that was up to 19 years old amongst them all. They were relatively amongst the small ratio of the youngest ISUP candidates. They had seen a few familiar faces from their set in the MBO, but these were only other special classes that had completed their training session in the MBO camp. There were also actual MBO officers who had finished from the MBO camp and had been on duty for up to a year. These even had higher ranks in the MBO. The number of people here was in the hundreds, and the number of slots left to be on the main team was only 16. The main team had a total of 20 slots, but 4 had already been occupied. Gustav and Elevra occupied 2 of the 4 slots, and the other 2 who had occupied the rest were currently unknown. This is not gonna be easy, Timmy said with a low tone. With these numbers, it will take at least 2 to 3 days before the selection is complete, Ildris mumbled. Well, at least making the substitute team would be possible for everyone here, he said while shrugging his shoulders. The substitute team had around 30 slots, which made the total amount of slots with the main team included 50 in number. According to the announcement that had been passed upon their arrival here, those with excellent performances who were unable to make the main team would be put on the substitute team. What's the point of being in a substitute team? Humph. I must get a slot on the main team and battle alongside my rival, Rhea voiced with enthusiasm. There are multiple peak Echo rank participants, but I think you guys would still be able to put up a fight, Elevra said with a tone of encouragement. The ones you guys should try to avoid the most are the 2 persons here who have already achieved the kilo ranks, she added. What? Huh! They exclaimed with looks of disbelief as they heard that. There's a kilo rank? Angie voiced out with a worried tone. Not 1 but 2, Elevra responded. While they knew there were a lot of mixed bloods with higher bloodline rank than them, they had no idea that some of them had achieved the kilo rank. In their group, Falco, Matilda, Rhea, Vera, Timmy and Glade were still at the peak of Falcon rank, so this new situation worried Eldris and the others. Every one of them was capable of handling mixed bloods slightly above their ranks, but the gap between Kilo and Falcon's rank was too large. Even for them who had already achieved Echo rank, beating a Kilo-ranked mixed blood was close to impossible. We'll really need to avoid them during the selection. Good thing, there's only 2 of them, Eldris voiced out. You guys just can't sense them because they're hiding it. I think they plan on taking the others by surprise, Elevra explained. It wasn't surprising that Elevra could discern the hidden Kilo ranks since she had her special forehead eye. She was capable of sensing better than every single one of them. Elevra was also the only person in their group besides Hendrik who had reached the 2nd step of the Echo rank. Eldris, Angie and E. You were at the 1st step of the Echo rank while Gustav, who wasn't here, was at the 3rd step. So long as we work together it should be no issue scaling through the selection. Hendrik, who had been silently dwelling in their midst all this time, finally spoke up. Well, you heard the kid, E. He voiced out as he wrapped his arm around Hendrik's shoulder. We also have him here as well, so there's nothing to worry about, he added. Elevra, point out the participants we need to avoid, Eldris requested. While they were having their group discussion, other participants were also taking note of the participants who may give them a tough time in this selection. They didn't notice that some of these participants already had them on their radar and decided to avoid them as well. They're friends of Gustav Crimson. I don't think they will be easy opponents. A group of 40 clustered in a particular area of the Iceland seemed to be holding a meeting as well. This group were dressed like high school students in white striped uniforms. However, it was obvious they weren't high school students. Instead, they were from some private organization. This was a common thing here since this place was filled with participants from all across the world. There's only about 10 of them, and we are more than 40 in number. There's nothing to be worried about, another one of the members voiced out. Just because they're his friends doesn't make them as good as he is. The Ashiras have nothing to fear since the dreaded Gustav Crimson will not be participating in the selection with them. This time the person who seemed to be the leader of the group voiced out. He had white flowing hair that reached the back of his thighs, almost like how Eldris had extremely long hair as well. His words struck confidence in the hearts of his subordinates. They all nodded in agreement after hearing him speak, and their faces shone with decisiveness. In other parts of this Iceland, groups could be seen clustered together as well in different outfits. 50% of the participants here today were MBO officers or cadets, while the others were from different private organizations and special mixed blood higher institutions. It had been mentioned initially that mixed bloods from all across the board would be given a chance to represent the planet in ISOP, so this wasn't a surprising situation. They only had to hold on for now as the selection hadn't begun. Are we ready for Phase 1? Within a secluded underground region, a man in a white outfit voiced out. Phase 1 is ready for implementation, sir. Amongst the people working here, a lady tapping on a holographic tab beside him responded. Right in front of them, a huge holographic screen displayed the participants waiting for the selection to begin. Implement Phase 1. The man in a white outfit commanded. What about the candidates already chosen to be on the main team? The lady inquired. Isolate them. The man responded immediately. She nodded in response and proceeded to tap a few keys on the screen in front of her. Implementing Phase 1. She muttered while tapping a few more times. Sing! Huh! Where did Elevra go? He suddenly voiced out as he saw Elevra disappear with a flash of white light. It's starting! Hendrik's face turned serious as he voiced out. GBBHHHHHBBBBLLHHH. The entire Iceland began quaking all of a sudden, causing the participants to be on alert. A few lines of cracks spread from one area to the other, and in the next few moments, the icy ground split open. This took everyone by surprise as they had been informed of how sturdy these icy grounds were. It was said to be capable of withstanding powerful attacks from even kilo-ranked mixed bloods, yet it was suddenly splitting open. This split separated a lot of the participants, as the part of the icy ground they were standing on shifted in another direction. For Mayum, as the icy ground split open, intense flames suddenly spewed out from the spaces within the splits. This scenario took a lot of them by surprise. The flames oozing forth in multiple areas of the splits were not melting the icy ground they were positioned on, yet they could feel the immense heat. There was no doubt the flames were real due to the immense rise in temperature that was also battling with the low temperature from the icy region. Chapter 1061. Still on it, the temperature had turned weird at this point. As the ground split apart, carrying multiple people in opposite directions. No one here was stupid, so they knew at this point that this was related to the selection. Fui-yi. 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 Are those ribbons? Everyone looked up to the sky as they spotted different colors of ribbons appearing within it. These ribbons fell from the sky towards the participants, drifting in different directions due to the splitting icy ground. As the ribbons fell, they caught it, and those standing together on a particular part of the split ground caught the same color of ribbons, while the ones on separate icy grounds caught different colors. Attention! A loud masculine voice reverberated across the ice and fiery region. The colors picked determine your current group as well as your objective. Based on your color, you all will have to find your assigned spot within the duration of 30 minutes. Failure to do so results in immediate disqualification. Red, make your way to the designated blue strip. Blue, make your way to the designated red strip. White, make your way to the designated black strip. Black, make your way to the designated white strip. Green, make your way to the designated yellow strip. Yellow, make your way to the designated green strip. Purple, make your way to the designated brown strip. The voice explained that these colored stops were locations they had to find within 30 minutes, and once they arrived there they would know that they had arrived at the right location. The problem was finding the location. According to the masculine voice giving them instructions, the color strips they had to locate were down within the abyss of flames. They would have to find a way to dive into the middle of the cracks and locate the color strips. The masculine voice explained that the flames were in no way bluffs and would burn them to crisp if they weren't careful. There were flaming split areas that had lower intensity compared to the others. These areas were the only paths to infiltrating the splits on the icy ground and finding the color strips. They had weaker flames and would not hurt the mixed bloods, but finding these areas would be immensely cumbersome. The color strips were located beneath, and according to the classification, one would have to find it and stay there with the others who had the same ribbon color. We're on the green team, Falco voiced out while holding the green ribbon out. We have to find the yellow strip in less than 30 minutes, Ildris stated as he peered at the pillar of flames bursting forth from the split ground in front of them. He looked around and noticed there were around 30 other participants standing on this split part of the icy ground with them. He looked around and noticed there were around 30 other participants standing on this split part of the icy ground with them. We have company, but there were no set instructions on the necessity of working together, so we don't need to worry about the others, Ildris stated. True, but working together might be beneficial as well, he said as he observed the others. Can you open a vortex for us to cross through the flames to the bottom? Falco asked Not a sensible option, since I don't know how deep we have to go. Might end up spawning in an area full of intense flames. He shook his head while responding. The voice did mention there were areas we could successfully make use of to travel towards the bottom, Matilda reminded. While they took a few seconds to plot their movement, some of the participants on the same icy split ground as them began to move. Fly. 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 Some leapt from one icy split ground to the next, traveling forward. While every space within the splits have flames bursting forth, some of the flames weren't so high in height that they were uncrossable. This made leaping over them possible, especially for mixed bloods of this caliber. Some mixed bloods that were capable of flight had taken to the skies and began scouring the region. This made it a whole lot easier for them, but they would still have no choice but to swoop down when they needed to infiltrate some of the spaces in the cracks. Oh shit, that was close! A participant yelled out as he landed on a platform of ice after leaping over a wall of hot flames spewing from the cracks. Despite successfully leaping over them, he felt the temperature from the flames was hot enough to turn him to barbecue in a matter of seconds. He still felt the burns despite not making contact with the flames. This was happening in other places as well. Some other participants took caution before leaping over the next wall of flames. The flames spewing from the midst of the cracks were everywhere, so it made it very difficult to pick which direction to move in, since it blocked the view of those incapable of flight. They could only use their senses to discern their next step, and even with that, things were still very difficult. Whoosh! A silver streak suddenly appeared in front of E and the others. This way, NG voiced out while pointing southeast. Everyone turned to the direction NG pointed in and leapt forward. Fui! The icy platform, on which only about 20 participants were left, rumbled vigorously as these 10 leapt across the air. NG was the only one who didn't leap forward with them. Positioning herself in a running form, she sprinted forward once more. Fwiosh! NG's figure disappeared in an instant, causing a whooshing sound to reverberate across the place as immense winds spread from her initial position. She didn't even have to leap. Due to her intense speed, the flames were unable to make contact with her, and instead parted ways as she charged forward. It was almost like she was intangible when running forward, and due to her speed it seemed like just a single step could take her across icy platforms, almost like she was floating. This whole situation was not a problem for NG. The participants left on the platform had difficulty balancing themselves after these 11 left, and the winds caused their outfits to flap intensely along with their hair. Some participants had already made their way forward in a different direction, and some of the participants left were finding it difficult to make a choice. "I'm following them, in going this way, Jews, this direction seems more sensible." They knew the clock was ticking, so they wasted no time in making their choice. They began leaping forward as well, some in the same direction as Eldris and the others, while others in a different direction. "This way," NG voiced out again as they arrived on another icy platform. Everyone followed her instructions, knowing she must have scouted ahead already, so her directions were accurate. They went ahead to cross multiple more walls of fire, while some participants also followed them from behind. In other areas, the mixed bloods capable of flight flew across the region. They would occasionally swoop down to check on different areas they suspected might not be as hot. Everyone was looking for the access points to getting through the flames, so this part of the situation was not so easy. Still, the mixed bloods capable of flight had it easier than the others who were unable to do so. It was even much more easier for some like Angie with such speed. The flames were unable to faze her. About a few minutes later again they arrived on a platform in the middle of 4 walls of flames surrounding them on each side. Bam! 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 Luckily, they controlled the distance in which they leapt earlier, if not they would have found themselves in the midst of one of these flames upon landing within the splits. The space on the icy platform was not very large, so upon landing they had occupied most of it. Bam! 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 A few more participants began to land here as well. "Ha! Aragraya!" one of them yelled out as they found themselves landing in one of the flames. "Kyerf hi!" They kept screaming out as the flames roasted them. He was about to create a vortex to help this person get out of the flames when the person suddenly disappeared. The person had been teleported out, which automatically meant disqualification. The others standing on this icy platform subconsciously shivered as they recalled the scream a moment ago. There was no denying, it was a very painful experience, even though one would get saved before they burned to death. "This is our way in," Angie said as she pointed towards the left. Chapter 1062. Still on it, the temperature had turned weird at this point. As the ground split apart, carrying multiple people in opposite directions. No one here was stupid, so they knew at this point that this was related to the selection. Fui-yi. 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 Are those ribbons? Everyone looked up to the sky as they spotted different colors of ribbons appearing within it. These ribbons fell from the sky towards the participants, drifting in different directions due to the splitting icy ground. As the ribbons fell, they caught it, and those standing together on a particular part of the split ground caught the same color of ribbons, while the ones on separate icy grounds caught different colors. Attention! A loud masculine voice reverberated across the ice and fiery region. The colors picked determine your current group as well as your objective. Based on your color, you all will have to find your assigned spot within the duration of 30 minutes. Failure to do so results in immediate disqualification. Red, make your way to the designated blue strip. Blue, make your way to the designated red strip. White, make your way to the designated black strip. Black, make your way to the designated white strip. Green, make your way to the designated yellow strip. Yellow, make your way to the designated green strip. Purple, make your way to the designated brown strip. The voice explained that these colored stops were locations they had to find within 30 minutes, and once they arrived there they would know that they had arrived at the right location. The problem was finding the location. According to the masculine voice giving them instructions, the color strips they had to locate were down within the abyss of flames. They would have to find a way to dive into the middle of the cracks and locate the color strips. The masculine voice explained that the flames were in no way bluffs and would burn them to crisp if they weren't careful. There were flaming split areas that had lower intensity compared to the others. These areas were the only paths to infiltrating the splits on the icy ground and finding the color strips. They had weaker flames and would not hurt the mixed bloods, but finding these areas would be immensely cumbersome. The color strips were located beneath, and according to the classification, one would have to find it and stay there with the others who had the same ribbon color. "We're on the green team," Falco voiced out while holding the green ribbon out. "We have to find the yellow strip in less than 30 minutes, Ildris stated as he peered at the pillar of flames bursting forth from the split ground in front of them. He looked around and noticed there were around 30 other participants standing on this split part of the icy ground with them. He looked around and noticed there were around 30 other participants standing on this split part of the icy ground with them. "We have company, but there were no set instructions on the necessity of working together, so we don't need to worry about the others," Ildris stated. "True, but working together might be beneficial as well," he said as he observed the others. "Can you open a vortex for us to cross through the flames to the bottom?" Falco asked "Not a sensible option, since I don't know how deep we have to go. Might end up spawning in an area full of intense flames." He shook his head while responding. "The voice did mention there were areas we could successfully make use of to travel towards the bottom," Matilda reminded. While they took a few seconds to plot their movement, some of the participants on the same icy split ground as them began to move. Fly! 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 Some leapt from one icy split ground to the next, traveling forward. While every space within the splits have flames bursting forth, some of the flames weren't so high in height that they were uncrossable. This made leaping over them possible, especially for mixed bloods of this caliber. Some mixed bloods that were capable of flight had taken to the skies and began scouring the region. This made it a whole lot easier for them, but they would still have no choice but to swoop down when they needed to infiltrate some of the spaces in the cracks. "Oh shit, that was close!" a participant yelled out as he landed on a platform of ice after leaping over a wall of hot flames spewing from the cracks. Despite successfully leaping over them, he felt the temperature from the flames was hot enough to turn him to barbecue in a matter of seconds. He still felt the burns despite not making contact with the flames. This was happening in other places as well. Some other participants took caution before leaping over the next wall of flames. The flames spewing from the midst of the cracks were everywhere, so it made it very difficult to pick which direction to move in, since it blocked the view of those incapable of flight. They could only use their senses to discern their next step, and even with that, things were still very difficult. Whoosh! A silver streak suddenly appeared in front of E and the others. "This way," Engie voiced out while pointing southeast. Everyone turned to the direction Engie pointed in and leapt forward. Fui-yi! The icy platform, on which only about 20 participants were left, rumbled vigorously as these 10 leapt across the air. Engie was the only one who didn't leap forward with them. Positioning herself in a running form, she sprinted forward once more. Fwyosh Angie's figure disappeared in an instant, causing a whooshing sound to reverberate across the place as immense winds spread from her initial position. She didn't even have to leap. Due to her intense speed, the flames were unable to make contact with her, and instead parted ways as she charged forward. It was almost like she was intangible when running forward, and due to her speed it seemed like just a single step could take her across icy platforms, almost like she was floating. This whole situation was not a problem for Angie. The participants left on the platform had difficulty balancing themselves after these 11 left, and the winds caused their outfits to flap intensely along with their hair. Some participants had already made their way forward in a different direction, and some of the participants left were finding it difficult to make a choice. "I'm following them, in going this way, Jews, this direction seems more sensible." They knew the clock was ticking, so they wasted no time in making their choice. They began leaping forward as well, some in the same direction as Eldris and the others, while others in a different direction. "This way," Angie voiced out again as they arrived on another icy platform. Everyone followed her instructions, knowing she must have scouted ahead already, so her directions were accurate. They went ahead to cross multiple more walls of fire, while some participants also followed them from behind. In other areas, the mixed bloods capable of flight flew across the region. They would occasionally swoop down to check on different areas they suspected might not be as hot. Everyone was looking for the access points to getting through the flames, so this part of the situation was not so easy. Still, the mixed bloods capable of flight had it easier than the others who were unable to do so. It was even much more easier for some like Angie with such speed. The flames were unable to faze her. About a few minutes later again they arrived on a platform in the middle of 4 walls of flames surrounding them on each side. Bam! 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 Luckily, they controlled the distance in which they leapt earlier, if not they would have found themselves in the midst of one of these flames upon landing within the splits. The space on the icy platform was not very large, so upon landing they had occupied most of it. Bam! 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 A few more participants began to land here as well. "Ha! Aragraya!" one of them yelled out as they found themselves landing in one of the flames. "Kyr Hi!" they kept screaming out as the flames roasted them. He was about to create a vortex to help this person get out of the flames when the person suddenly disappeared. The person had been teleported out, which automatically meant disqualification. The others standing on this icy platform subconsciously shivered as they recalled the scream a moment ago. There was no denying, it was a very painful experience, even though one would get saved before they burned to death. "This is our way in," Angie said as she pointed towards the left. Chapter 1063. "We just have to cross this last bit," she added before once more instructing them about how much distance they needed to leap forward. The incident that happened a while ago had occurred in several places as well. A few participants had been eliminated in a bid to find the areas with access to underneath the icy split grounds. As Eldris, Endrick and the others arrived on the other side of the wall of flames jetting out of the splits ahead, they landed on another icy platform. In this area, the icy ground had split so much that the wall of flames ahead was wider compared to others and extended forward in a straight line. Falco looked around and could see that they were still surrounded by flames. "I thought you said—" he was about speaking when Angie cut him off. "Jump in, everyone," she voiced out while pointing at the split up ahead that was wider than 50 feet. The flames were still spewing out of the space in between this wide crack vigorously, which caused everyone's face to lit up in confusion. Angie saw the confused looks on their faces, and rolled her eyes before stepping forward off the ledge of the icy platform. Why? She fell straight into the space between the cracks with the flames spewing out. "Angie!" Matilda yelled out with a look of concern. "Guys, it's a feint," Ildris voiced out before stepping forward as well. He walked right off the ledge and fell into the spewing flames. They all stared at each other for a bit after witnessing this. There were no screams of pain, so there was no doubt that the two didn't feel pain after falling into the flames. Endrick and he stepped forward at this point and jumped in as well. This prompted the others to take action. They moved forward as well and performed the same action as the others, jumping into the flames spewing from the space between the cracks. In just a few moments, not a single person was left on the icy platform. Up ahead in the sky, a figure that had been flying around paused their flight and stared down at the area where the group had just jumped in. "I found an entrance," the figure voiced out while turning around and flying in another direction. In an unknown location, an aircraft landed behind a massive rock. The aircraft was in camouflage mode, so it didn't give off any signals. However, it still stirred winds across the vicinity upon landing in this unknown area. "Stay here," Gustav said to Gradier Xanatus as he got off the aircraft. He pulled something out of his storage device and stamped it to his forehead. In the next instant, Gustav turned invisible. Cognitive concealment has been activated. He activated one of his main bloodline abilities and caused his entire presence to vanish without a trace. Gradier Xanatus, who was sitting within the aircraft and watching Gustav through the cameras installed, could see he had disappeared. This didn't bug him, as he was well aware of the invisible tool from the MBO. What surprised him was how Gustav made his presence vanish. Usually a stronger mixed blood or a very high-leveled one would still be able to sense the presence of a mixed blood even if it was faint, but now he couldn't sense Gustav in the slightest. Why? Gustav leapt across the air, traveling several hundred feet in a few moments. This unknown region had rough terrain spanning for miles and a few rough-looking mountains scattered across the area. On the far east, a small lake was visible from Gustav's height in the air as he stared down properly at the region while ascending. Hover has been activated. Gustav activated this after his body reached a particular height in the sky and kept scrutinizing the region. Looks like there's really nothing here, Gustav thought as he looked around. Stinzian, he released his perception, completely causing it to spread from his figure for a couple of miles. His perception climbed and spread across every sand, dune, mountain, lake, and even the movement of the winds in this area, reaching far further than his eyes could see without God eyes activated. Gustav still couldn't sense a single living presence above ground, besides the ones in the aircraft that brought him here. While this scenario was somewhat expected, Gustav thought he would at least find a structure in this unknown region. He finally recalled his perception so as not to waste too much energy, and activated another skill. God Eyes has been activated. Since he had practically checked the surroundings above surface, Gustav decided to check if there were any hidden underground. Zuzan, his sight zoomed in as he inspected the entire region again on a more microscopic level. In the next minute, Gustav's eyes squinted as he stared southwest. He mumbled. "That's a level 95, why is it so deep underground? This is not its usual habitat," Gustav muttered with a look of suspiciousness. "Time for a closer inspection," he said with a look of decisiveness before charging downwards with speed. Angie and the others had arrived in a kind of icy underground area. They landed on a solid ground after falling through the faint flames for more than 200 feet. While this underground area had brownish-looking grounds, there were walls all around the place. These walls looked like giant glaciers and were cold to touch. They realized these walls were actually the lower parts of the icy grounds they had been stepping on when they were above. The brownish grounds were also cut across the entire vicinity. Sea of flames surrounded the area, but the brownish grounds in different areas made it so walking was possible. While some places still had flames rising into the air, others were relatively calm. Due to this, they knew exactly how to navigate their way across this underground region. "The ribbons are glowing," Timmy stated. "When I turn this way, the glow dims," Endrik voiced as with a ribbon in his grasp as he turned west. Chapter 1064. It indicates direction, Endrik added as he turned to face the south once again, causing the glow to increase compared to the other direction he turned in. "Which means south is the way to go," Engie voiced out with a look of understanding. "No." Endrik shook his head as he turned north, which caused the ribbon to dim even more than the other directions. "South will take us to where the yellow strip is located, which means we'll have to head north since our color group is meant to find the green strip," Ildris voiced out as he figured it out from Endrik's response. "Correct, We have to head in the opposite direction. Endrick nodded as he gave the confirmation. Everyone's eyes widened in realization as they heard this. They couldn't believe they almost took the wrong step. It was easy to mistake this, which meant that a lot of participants would definitely make this mistake and head in the wrong direction due to misunderstanding from the glow of the ribbons. They had to admit Endrick was pretty smart. Let's go then, Ildris voiced as they turned towards the north and began to make his way forward. The others followed after him as well, and Angie charged forward to scout the surroundings on their behalf. At this point, only around 20 minutes were left before they ran out of time to complete the first phase of the selection. In another area of the icy region, some other participants had made it down as well and started making their way towards the required spots. As expected, some of them didn't figure out that they were supposed to head in the opposite direction of the brighter glow. It was unknown how long it would take them to get to the objective, so who knew whether they could salvage the situation or not. The sea of lava-like flames here are just as dangerous as the ones above. Luckily, the platforms here are much stable than the icy ones above, a girl voiced out within a group clad in brownish and green outfit. Dandy, are you sure we're going in the right direction though? Another boy in the group with a yellow-scaled face questioned. The others also had looks of doubt as the boy asked this question. Yes, it only makes sense for us to head in the opposite direction. Didn't I already explain to you guys? Dandy, who was a beauty with red skin and vampire-like canines, responded. The others still had looks of reluctance and doubt as they leaped from one brownish platform to the other, following after Dandy, who seemed like the leader here. Within an unknown and isolated area, the people in charge of the selection watched the participants as they moved towards where they suspected their designates strip to be. As expected, more than 70% of them area headed in the wrong direction. The man in white outfit voiced as he stared at the massive holographic screen in front. At least some figured out the misunderstanding and are headed the right way, the lady beside him stated. For now they are, the man in white responded with an ominous tone. The real challenge comes when the glow completely disappears before they arrive at the strip, the lady voiced out once more. What do you think will happen when they arrive at that point and the other 70% also figures out their mistake? The man in white questioned. When they come to that realization, things will get intense, she responded with tone of different implications. The man in white already understood what she meant by this. Despite not being a requirement, conflict was unavoidable in the end. It dimmed completely, Matilda mentioned while holding out the greenish ribbon. The others could see this as well and looked around, observing the surroundings. What do we do now? Another person on the green team who had been following them from the start questioned. Endrick looked straight up ahead and there was really no brownish platform up ahead. Southeast and southwest of their direction had brownish platforms, but looking straight up they could only see sea of flames. Do we go left or do we go right? Falco had a confused expression as he questioned. Even if we wanted to take the left and find a way to make a turn later up ahead when we find a platform to move on, there is no guarantee that we would be right on track. We might end up being off and miss the yellow strip. Ildris and Glade voiced out one after the other. I could go scout, Angie said as she prepared to run, but Endrick grabbed her by the arm before she could leave. We might have a faster way, he stated, causing the rest to show looks of curiosity. Endrick took a step forward and stretched out his hand. His eyes gleamed with a silvery blue color as an invisible telekinetic wave spread forth from him. Just this little release of energy made everyone realize that Endrick was actually a lot powerful than they realized. The sea of flames extend for as long as 45,000 feet without any platform to stand on, Endrick revealed as his eyes dimmed and returned to normal. That's no short distance, Timmy voiced out. A smile appeared on E.'s face at this point as he took a step forward. Endrick moved to the side, as he already expected this. My vortex can appear that far, now that I have an estimate of the distance, He voiced out as he stretched his hand forward. Serene. A large purple vortex appeared in the next instant. Let's go, he yelled out as he jumped in. Everyone proceeded to jump in as well without questioning him. The others trusted While the ones that were not originally a part of the group of 10 had no choice but to follow. They didn't want to start navigating the entire place themselves. Chapter 1065. They appeared right above another platform after going through the vortex. Wow! The others that had been following them voiced out in astonishment after arriving here. It was no simple feat to be able to project his vortex across the precise amount of distance required. He was obviously good at using his bloodline ability. From here we can keep heading forward, Ildris voiced out as he looked up ahead. Everyone stared forward as well and noticed that there were platforms up ahead so they could keep leaping from one to the next. They proceeded to keep moving forward at this point. Only around 15 minutes were left before they ran out of time at this point. I found something, Gustav voiced through the communication channel. Dash. What is it? Where are you? Gradier Xanatus questioned. Underground. I'm standing right in front of a live level 95 Dorna's mixed breed, Gustav responded as he looked forward. Right before him was a dark-looking creature more than 3 stories large in size. This creature was shaped like a tortoise and had 4 legs as well, but instead of a shell, it was replaced by a large, thick-looking tissue. The creature had dark scales all over and its gigantic mouth was wide open. Dash. What? Are you okay? Gradier Xanatus inquired with a worried tone. I'm fine, Gustav replied. Dash. What is a level 95 Dornoise doing underground? I'm coming to you now, Gradier Xanatus voiced through the comms. Don't come, just stay there. I'll ask you to come when I need you. Gustav quickly shot Gradier Xanatus down. He was still in invisible mode and his presence concealed, so he wouldn't want Gradier Xanatus to come here until he knew exactly what he was dealing with. Dash. Are you sure? Gradier Xanatus questioned. Yes. I am just communicating to give you a feedback of the current status. I will have to cut it now so I don't end up giving away my presence due to the waves from communication, Gustav stated. Dash. What exactly is going on? Gradier Xanatus questioned once more. I'm not too sure, but I think I'm about to find out, Gustav replied as he took steps forward. Its mouth is wide open but its eyes are closed. Almost like it's unconscious, but I can sense some weird energies within its mouth, he disclosed. Dash. That's weird. Dornoses never sleep for their entire 100 years lifespan, and why would its mouth be wide open? Gradier Xanatus was confused about the present situation. Either ways I'm going in, Gustav concluded. Dash. Give me a timer, Gradier Xanatus demanded. A timer for what? Gustav asked. For how long before I come find you if you're still not out of there or fail to give me feedback on comms, Gradier Xanatus responded. 30 minutes, Gustav stated before ending the communication. Gradier Xanatus could already pinpoint Gustav's exactly position underground due to the communication, so if anything happened, he could easily swoop in. Gustav proceeded to walk into the dark large mouth of the massive mixed breed. It was at this same period that the selection began in the other location. The Iceland's selection location. I see it. Within a group of over 50 people in MBO outfits moving together, an officer voiced out. Dash. Wait, that's not. Dash. That's the red strip. Voices began to murmur from the background. The officers held out a red glowing ribbons with looks of confusion on their faces. This location had a red glowing circular platform with the words red strip carved into the glacier-like wall behind the platform. We were supposed to locate the blue, one of them stated. We're at the wrong place, the ribbon glow leads to. At this point everyone began to realize they had misunderstood the glow. Shit! 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 Another of the officers began to cuss crazily as the realization hit. We only have around 10 minutes left to find the blue strip or we lose, another officer stated, causing panic to ring out. Some of them began to turn around at this point to head back. They didn't care that only 10 minutes were left. They wanted to make sure they found the blue strip as soon as possible. At this same moment a group of 10 in purple outfit arrived at this location. We found it, One of them yelled out with a look of excitement. "Oh, look at these fools, they don't know they just..." One of the MBO officers was voicing out in pity when he spotted the new arrivals. His voice trailed off before he could complete the sentence, as he noticed something. "Hey, they're holding blue ribbons!" As the officer voiced this out, everyone turned to stare at this group of 10 that had just arrived here. Everyone's eyes widened in realization as this group began to feel uncomfortable from the prickling stares full of intent. They could see that the blue ribbons this group held were not glowing in the slightest, while theirs had bright glows. "Doesn't this mean, with their ribbons, we can find the blue strip?" As these voices completed each other's sentences in the background, a huge uproar was caused. Bloodline energies were instantly activated as the group of MBO officers charged at these 10 that had just arrived here. "Defend yourself!" One of them in the group yelled out as he also activated his bloodline energy. "Get to the strip!" Another one voiced out while activating her bloodline energy as well. Boom! Destructive ripples were sent forth across the entire vicinity due to all these powerful mixed bloods activating their bloodlines at the same time. "Get them!" An MBO officer yelled out. One of the MBO officers teleported and arrived right in front of one of them. He reached out instantly, throwing a fist at the gut of the person he appeared in front of. Bam! The person, who was taken by surprise with the sudden appearance, got blasted across the air and was sent flying over the ledge due to the intense force behind the attack. Chapter 1066. The MBO officer grabbed hold of the ribbon after it got released from the victim's grasp. "I got on!" As he was about yelling in victory, an attack hit him from behind. Boom! The green cannon-like energy projectile that exploded upon contact sent intense ripples of destruction across the place, causing a lot of them to take cover. The officer who got it was sent flying over the ledge. However, before he could fall into the sea of flames, he teleported. Sing! He reappeared within the ranks of his fellow officers, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The attack was unexpected and was surprisingly powerful as well, but even with that, the MBO officer still managed to get what he wanted. The blue ribbon was in his grasp, while the other officer who he attacked had fallen into the sea of flames and gotten disqualified. The person who had just successfully landed the hit got surrounded by multiple MBO officers and attacked. The group of 10 had already been reduced to 9, but even if they were not missing one person, they were already outnumbered from the start. The MBO officers were also well trained and pretty powerful as well, so it turned into a one-sided battle in a matter of seconds. "Run, new rife!" The person who happened to be closest to the red strip heard his other teammates yell out from behind. They were all getting jumped, but they managed to clear a path for him. Then he leaped off the platform where the battle was happening. At the same time, some officers were about to grab him. The officers jumped after him as well. Instead, he leapt forward. He still had his ribbon in his hand as his body traveled in an arc format towards the red strip platform. Bam! In the next second he landed on it, and the other two who had jumped after him were close to reaching the platform when they got repelled by a force surrounding the red strip. Bang! Bang! The unknown energy from the invisible force field surrounding the platform blasted them away. "Arf! Kyrer!" They both yelled out as they fell into the sea of flames below. The other officer, who was about to leap off the platform with them, initially stood in place. "Looks like only a person with a blue ribbon can get in," he muttered. They had no idea that a protective field was surrounding the red strip and would repel anyone without a blue ribbon. This made them realize that without their ribbons, they wouldn't be able to access their designated strips, so they had to make sure their ribbons were not taken from them. Out of the group of 10 that arrived, only one managed to get onto the platform, while the other 9 were robbed of their ribbons and disqualified. They were just finding out now how important the ribbon was to a participant. Realizing that there was no much time left, the officers turned around and began to move very quickly. Those who did not manage to get a blue ribbon followed after those who did, so they wouldn't miss the opportunity to get to the blue strip. At the same time the officers were leaving this area, other participants were arriving as well. Some of them had blue ribbons and some had red. A battle started out once more as the entire area before the strip became chaotic. "I saw this coming," Within an unknown and isolated area, a lady voiced out. Conflict is unavoidable, the man in white stated. Well, there was no rule stating that ribbons couldn't be stolen, so they haven't necessarily made a wrong choice, the lady voiced out. They haven't necessarily made a right choice as well. This will lead to some kind of enmity of some of the participants who had clashed with each other initially end up becoming a part of the main or substitute team, the man in white said with an analyzing tone. That's a bad foundation for a team. The lady understood what he was driving at. Let's see how things go. The man in white kept his eyes on the screen as he stated. On the massive holographic screen that displayed up to 100 different areas under the icy platforms, multiple battles were playing out. As some of the participants began to realize they had made the wrong choice and figured there were ribbons that could accurately point them in the right direction, they were prepared to do anything to get the ribbons. It didn't matter to them that the other participant would get disqualified, they would rather another person failed than them. As the saying went, smarter isn't necessarily equal to strength, which was the main problem in this situation. Only a few participants were smart enough to figure out that they needed to head in the opposite direction of the glow. However, upon arriving at the right location, the less smarter ones who failed to figure it out were waiting in ambush. The situation had gone bad for a lot of the smart ones because not only were they facing an ambush after arriving at the right location, a lot of them were weaker than the opposition. It was quite unfortunate, but nothing could be done about it. While the clock was ticking, the instant anyone managed to gain a ribbon that could help them get to the right location, they began moving quickly. It was a lot easier to get to their designated strip after stealing a ribbon, even though only a few minutes was left. This was mostly because they would spend longer time trying to find it without stealing one. Even when there was only 4 minutes left, a lot of the participants who failed to arrive at the right location still ambushed those who did just. At this point they knew they couldn't get to the designated strip before time would run out, but they wanted to make sure the others that were just arriving got disqualified as well. Chapter 1067. These teams that arrived first, really coordinated, the man in white voiced out as he stared at some areas on the screen. 50% of them are MBO officers, the lady stated as she tapped on a holographic tab in front of her. Some parts of the screen enlarged and officers who had arrived at their designated strip could be seen standing there waiting. Just 50%? The man in white questioned. The other 50% that were amongst the first to arrive are from a mixture of participants from different organizations, the lady responded. These ones in particular are to watch out for, she said while glancing at two groups, one in white and the other in all black outfit, on the left side of the screen. Their teamwork is splendid, she added. Better than our officers? The man in white questioned. In the aspect of proper coordination, only one group of MBO officers are on the same level with them based on what I have observed so far, she responded while staring at another part of the screen. Them. The man in white already knew the group she was referring to and also stared at the part of the screen that displayed them. 2 minutes left, yawn. It feels like we've been waiting for forever, Rhea voiced out as he yawned. The others stared at him and shook their heads. We've only been here for like 12 minutes, Rhea, Matilda said with a light chuckle. I can't wait for the next round to start, Rhea suddenly voiced out with a fired-up tone. Everyone else stood in place as well as they checked out the timer. At this point there were around 60 participants standing on this platform besides their group. They were the first to arrive here, but others had been arriving here around 5 minutes ago. Some arrived all on their own while others arrived in groups. The number of participants here were staggering low compared to the number that were supposed to locate the yellow strip. While they were here, they had witnessed ambushes from several yellow ribbon participants. They were already on the platform, so they didn't have to participate in such since the participants with yellow ribbons couldn't get to the platform. However, they did witness some battles with some green ribbon participants who were unable to reach the platform due to the ambushes. Just when only a minute was left, another participant arrived on the brownish platform before the yellow-stripped platform. He looked worn out but excited the moment he spotted the yellow strip up ahead. Finally, he yelled out with an enthusiastic look as he began to make his way forward. All of a sudden 7 MBO officers appeared in front of him, blocking his path. What? Get out of my way, he voiced as he checked the timer and realized only 50 seconds were left. Sure, just wait 49 seconds more, one of the officers voiced out with a smile. But by then I would be. He paused as he noticed every single one of them had yellow ribbons. He immediately understood what was going on. I need to get to that platform, he said with a look of decisiveness and dashed forward. For more chapters, please visit pen0vl.com. He leaped upwards before arriving in front of them, but in that same instant one of the MBO officers appeared in midair. Where do you think you're going? He voiced out while throwing a fist at his face. Bang! The participant got struck and crashed back on the brownish platform. The MBO officer surrounded him and began to kick him down whenever he tried to stand up. There were 7 of them, and he was just a single mixed blood, so even with his strength, which was similar to theirs, he was unable to fight back. Shit, only 20 seconds left till fail. Even with his bloodied face, the participant kept trying to get up. Eldris Endrick and watched from the platform with disgusted expressions. I didn't expect this, Eldris voiced out as he thought the participants would only ambush each other when there was still time. That still made sense, as he felt it was in a bid to find their designated strip, but now that they were just doing it to stop a participant who had given their all to get here, he and the others felt they couldn't just watch this without doing anything. I'll go, Imfaz. Engie was speaking when Endrick's figure blitzed forward with immense speed, arriving right on the platform when only 15 seconds were left. Telekinesis discharge, he voiced out as he clasped his hands together. Dry as his uniform bloated and flapped as a wave blasted forth from his figure, slamming heavily into the unsuspecting officers. They were too focused on beating the other participant down that they didn't notice Endrick's arrival fast enough. Bang! 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 Before they knew what was happening, their bodies had gotten blasted off the platform by this intense surge of invisible wave. The participant they were beating up was not a bit better, as he had also been blasted away. His body was drifting across the air, past the platform's ledge and close to falling into the sea of flames. Endrick stretched his hand out at this point. Why? The participant who was getting beat up earlier found his body elevating before he could fall into the sea of flames. Huh! He looked around with an expression of confusion before noticing Endrick. Let's go! Endrick voiced out before turning around and leaping forward. Whoosh! He landed on the yellow strip platform 5 seconds before the countdown ended. The participant who was wrapped by his telekinesis also arrived just as he did. He knelt on the platform with a bloodied face but an expression or gratitude. Thank you so much, thank you, he voiced out with an appreciative tone. Endrick nodded in response without saying a word. Chapter 1068. These teams that arrived first, really coordinated, the man in white voiced out as he stared at some areas on the screen. 50% of them are MBO officers, the lady stated as she tapped on a holographic tab in front of her. Some parts of the screen enlarged and officers who had arrived at their designated strip could be seen standing there waiting. Just 50%? The man in white questioned. The other 50% that were amongst the first to arrive are from a mixture of participants from different organizations, the lady responded. These ones in particular are to watch out for, she said while glancing at 2 groups, one in white and the other in all-black outfit, on the left side of the screen. Their teamwork is splendid, she added. Better than our officers? The man in white questioned. Pa Endi and Novel. In the aspect of proper coordination, only one group of MBO officers are on the same level with them based on what I have observed so far, she responded while staring at another part of the screen. Them. The man in white already knew the group she was referring to and also stared at the part of the screen that displayed them. 2 minutes left, yawn. It feels like we've been waiting for forever, Rhea voiced out as he yawned. The others stared at him and shook their heads. We've only been here for like 12 minutes, Rhea, Matilda said with a light chuckle. I can't wait for the next round to start. Rhea suddenly voiced out with a fired-up tone. Everyone else stood in place as well as they checked out the timer. At this point there were around 60 participants standing on this platform besides their group. They were the first to arrive here, but others had been arriving here around 5 minutes ago. Some arrived all on their own while others arrived in groups. The number of participants here were staggering low compared to the number that were supposed to locate the yellow strip. While they were here, they had witnessed ambushes from several yellow ribbon participants. They were already on the platform, so they didn't have to participate in such since the participants with yellow ribbons couldn't get to the platform. However, they did witness some battles with some green ribbon participants who were unable to reach the platform due to the ambushes. Just when only a minute was left, another participant arrived on the brownish platform before the yellow-stripped platform. He looked worn out but excited the moment he spotted the yellow strip up ahead. Finally! He yelled out with an enthusiastic look as he began to make his way forward. All of a sudden 7 MBO officers appeared in front of him, blocking his path. "What? Get out of my way!" he voiced as he checked the timer and realized only 50 seconds were left. "Sure, just wait 49 seconds more," one of the officers voiced out with a smile. "But by then I would be..." He paused as he noticed every single one of them had yellow ribbons. He immediately understood what was going on. "I need to get to that platform," he said with a look of decisiveness and dashed forward. For more chapters, please visit pen0vl.com. He leaped upwards before arriving in front of them, but in that same instant one of the MBO officers appeared in midair. "Where do you think you're going?" he voiced out while throwing a fist at his face. Bang! The participant got struck and crashed back on the brownish platform. The MBO officer surrounded him and began to kick him down whenever he tried to stand up. There were 7 of them, and he was just a single mixed blood, so even with his strength, which was similar to theirs, he was unable to fight back. Shit! Only 20 seconds left, it'll fail. Even with his bloodied face, the participant kept trying to get up. Eldris Endrick and watched from the platform with disgusted expressions. "I didn't expect this," Eldris voiced out as he thought the participants would only ambush each other when there was still time. That still made sense, as he felt it was in a bid to find their designated strip, but now that they were just doing it to stop a participant who had given their all to get here, he and the others felt they couldn't just watch this without doing anything. "I'll go, Imfaz," Engie was speaking when Endrick's figure blitzed forward with immense speed, arriving right on the platform when only 15 seconds were left. "Telekinesis discharge," he voiced out as he clasped his hands together. Dry as his uniform bloated and flapped as a wave blasted forth from his figure, slamming heavily into the unsuspecting officers. They were too focused on beating the other participant down that they didn't notice Endrick's arrival fast enough. Bang! 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 Before they knew what was happening, their bodies had gotten blasted off the platform by this intense surge of invisible wave. The participant they were beating up was not a bit better, as he had also been blasted away. His body was drifting across the air, past the platform's ledge and close to falling into the sea of flames. Endrick stretched his hand out at this point. "Why?" The participant who was getting beat up earlier found his body elevating before he could fall into the sea of flames. "Huh!" He looked around with an expression of confusion before noticing Endrick. "Let's go," Endrick voiced out before turning around and leaping forward. Whoosh! He landed on the yellow strip platform 5 seconds before the countdown ended. The participant who was wrapped by his telekinesis also arrived just as he did. He knelt on the platform with a bloodied face but an expression or gratitude. "Thank you so much, thank you," he voiced out with an appreciative tone. Endrick nodded in response without saying a word. Chapter 1069. These teams that arrived first, really coordinated. The man in white voiced out as he stared at some areas on the screen. 50% of them are MBO officers, the lady stated as she tapped on a holographic tab in front of her. Some parts of the screen enlarged and officers who had arrived at their designated strip could be seen standing there waiting. "Just 50%? The man in white questioned. The other 50% that were amongst the first to arrive are from a mixture of participants from different organizations, the lady responded. These ones in particular are to watch out for, she said while glancing at two groups, one in white and the other in all black outfit, on the left side of the screen. Their teamwork is splendid, she added. Better than our officers? The man in white questioned. In the aspect of proper coordination, only one group of MBO officers are on the same level with them based on what I have observed so far, she responded while staring at another part of the screen. Them. The man in white already knew the group she was referring to and also stared at the part of the screen that displayed them. 2 minutes left, yawn. It feels like we've been waiting for forever, Rhea voiced out as he yawned. The others stared at him and shook their heads. We've only been here for like 12 minutes, Rhea, Matilda said with a light chuckle. I can't wait for the next round to start, Rhea suddenly voiced out with a fired-up tone. Everyone else stood in place as well as they checked out the timer. At this point there were around 60 participants standing on this platform besides their group. They were the first to arrive here, but others had been arriving here around 5 minutes ago. Some arrived all on their own while others arrived in groups. The number of participants here were staggering low compared to the number that were supposed to locate the yellow strip. While they were here, they had witnessed ambushes from several yellow ribbon participants. They were already on the platform, so they didn't have to participate in such since the participants with yellow ribbons couldn't get to the platform. However, they did witness some battles with some green ribbon participants who were unable to reach the platform due to the ambushes. Just when only a minute was left, another participant arrived on the brownish platform before the yellow-stripped platform. He looked worn out but excited the moment he spotted the yellow strip up ahead. Finally! He yelled out with an enthusiastic look as he began to make his way forward. All of a sudden 7 MBO officers appeared in front of him, blocking his path. What? Get out of my way! He voiced as he checked the timer and realized only 50 seconds were left. Sure, just wait 49 seconds more, one of the officers voiced out with a smile. But by then I would be... He paused as he noticed every single one of them had yellow ribbons. He immediately understood what was going on. I need to get to that platform, he said with a look of decisiveness and dashed forward. For more chapters, please visit pen0vl.com. He leaped upwards before arriving in front of them, but in that same instant one of the MBO officers appeared in mid-air. Where do you think you're going? He voiced out while throwing a fist at his face. PNDN0VLC, bang. The participant got struck and crashed back on the brownish platform. The MBO officer surrounded him and began to kick him down whenever he tried to stand up. There were 7 of them, and he was just a single mixed blood, so even with his strength, which was similar to theirs, he was unable to fight back. Shit! Only 20 seconds left, it'll fail. Even with his bloodied face, the participant kept trying to get up. Eldris Endrick and watched from the platform with disgusted expressions. I didn't expect this, Eldris voiced out as he thought the participants would only ambush each other when there was still time. That still made sense, as he felt it was in a bid to find their designated strip, but now that they were just doing it to stop a participant who had given their all to get here, he and the others felt they couldn't just watch this without doing anything. I'll go, Imfaz! Engie was speaking when Endrick's figure blitzed forward with immense speed, arriving right on the platform when only 15 seconds were left. Telekinesis discharge, he voiced out as he clasped his hands together. Dry as his uniform bloated and flapped as a wave blasted forth from his figure, slamming heavily into the unsuspecting officers. They were too focused on beating the other participant down that they didn't notice Endrick's arrival fast enough. Bang! 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 Before they knew what was happening, their bodies had gotten blasted off the platform by this intense surge of invisible wave. The participant they were beating up was not a bit better, as he had also been blasted away. His body was drifting across the air, past the platform's ledge and close to falling into the sea of flames. Endrick stretched his hand out at this point. Why? The participant who was getting beat up earlier found his body elevating before he could fall into the sea of flames. Huh! He looked around with an expression of confusion before noticing Endrick. "Let's go," Endrick voiced out before turning around and leaping forward. Whoosh, he landed on the yellow strip platform 5 seconds before the countdown ended. The participant who was wrapped by his telekinesis also arrived just as he did. He knelt on the platform with a bloodied face but an expression or gratitude. "Thank you so much, thank you," he voiced out with an appreciative tone. Endrick nodded in response without saying a word. Chapter 1070. A loud voice rang out the moment the timer finished counting down. The participants that had managed to make it to their designated strips before the timer ran out had looks of relief after hearing this. They listened to the next set of instructions from the voice for the next few seconds while the participants who failed to make it to their designated strips before time were getting teleported out of the region. They had been automatically disqualified at this point. This was the first phase of the selection, and the number of participants went down from over 1,000 to around 400 at the end. Lots of MBO officers had failed to get to this point, as well as participants from other organizations. It wasn't even a problem of strength, as those with standard ranked bloodlines failed to pass this stage due to intelligence. The voice mentioned that there were only 2 more phases left, as the selection had a total of 3 phases. The next phase will be beginning shortly. The voice ended with this before they were transported to a different location via teleportation. "Sing! Sing! Sing! Sing!" Everyone found themselves arriving in a dimly lit environment with walls. It looked like they were in some type of waiting room. They settled down on the seats prepared for them and the environment turned rowdy. There were still over 400 participants left, so the vicinity seemed a bit crowded. There were participants observing one another and making analysis based on what they had witnessed so far from the other participants. While they were here, the dude Endrick had saved kept voicing out his appreciation repeatedly. Endrick didn't know how to take it, since this was like his first time actually saving someone besides getting sent on secret missions where in those cases the citizens never found out they were saved. All he could think of was atonement. At the time when the participant was getting jumped, he couldn't help but recall one person. This person had gone through the same situation in the past, and he ignored the ones he witnessed, choosing not to act. This time he decided to do the opposite. While they waited, Ildris had already taken note of a few groups that had the same number of people they started with. These groups were not missing a single person. He felt this proved that there were to watch out for. A lot of them are from different private organizations, some of the most prestigious in the world. Ildris muttered. PNDN0VELCOM. Ta Hanksville Bloodline Organization is here as well. They specialize on bloodlines that mostly have telekinesis and telepathy type of abilities. Falco disclosed. "Oh? So like Endrick?" Matilda said while turning to the side to stare at Endrick. Everyone stared at him as well. For more chapters, please visit pan0vl.com. Endrick had missed Falco words when he mentioned the private organization, so he was confused as to why they were staring at him. "Pretty much, I guess," Falco responded. "But there's also Expansion Mixed Blood College, Gradient Mount Detection." Falco began to mention the others as he looked around. Everyone listened while also wondering how Falco was so informed about all these. It looked like he really did research on the other organizations participating in the selection. There is no doubt they'd be able to do well in specific areas better than others, and since we're gonna be dealing with multiple people mostly using the same type of abilities, their collective force would be powerful. We have to be careful, Falco warned. While they were analyzing the others were analyzing them as well as other people that might be dangerous. Some of the private organizations were good at assessment, so they already took notice of the MBO officers that would be difficult to take care of in the future phases. They were practically undergoing situations the MBO officers had experience in, and were well trained for, so they knew they had to be prudent enough. I knew they would make it here, without a single casualty too. A person watching from far behind thought as they stared in the group's direction. Few minutes later. "Hey newbies!" They heard a voice call out from the side as a group of people walked over. They were 4 in number, 3 males and 1 female. Two of the males had the exact same body features and looks. Ashen white face and ram horns with a 7-foot-tall frame and muscular bearing. They had black tails protruding from their rear side, and it was obvious they were twins. The other male was around 5 foot tall in height with a long goatee and braided brown hair. While he was the shortest, he bore a kind of demeanor that depicted he was the leader. The only girl in their midst was the largest, even looking more muscular than the twins. She seemed a bit taller than them as well and had a very busy frame and surprisingly beautiful but mean-looking face. They set off their bloodline energy to incite intimidation as they approached. Eldris stared at these mixed bloods with officer uniforms. I heard that someone among you was responsible for saving a bloke from a private organization. The shortest on in their midst voiced out with a deep tone. Endrick was about to step forward, but before he could, Eldris stood in front of him and approached the upcoming group. So what? He questioned without showing a shred of intimidation on his face. Oh? Was it you, blind bastard? The short one asked while looking up at Eldris as he arrived in front of him. He could see that Eldris' eyes were closed, and Eldris was also over 7 feet tall, so he was towering far above this short officer. What if it was? So what? Eldris questioned again with an undisturbed tone. The other three stepped forward as well, with strong looks standing side by side. Chapter 1071. At this moment, Rhea and Timmy stepped forward as well and proceeded to stand opposite the other three. Despite their height, the others did not back down and stared up at the opposition with intense expressions. Falco's face turned dark as tattoos appeared all over. Hey! Who are these low-life scums displaying their weakness? Dark Falco yelled out as he also stepped forward. They all stopped Endrick from facing these four as they felt the need to protect him as Gustav's little brother. Ha ha! The short one began laughing hysterically after a brief silence. Good, show off. If you know what's best for you, work with us to make sure every single private organization participant fail in the next phase. They shouldn't be here in the first place because the chance to represent the planet should belong only to the MBO. He added. Pass. Well, only focus on successfully getting through the next phase. You guys can do whatever you want. Eldris turned their offer down instantly. Do you guys wish to be isolated from the others? If you fail to work together with your fellow officers to eradicate the scums that shouldn't be here, we shall offer you the same treatment as them. The bulky girl voiced out next. We're not interested in joining you to ambush others, except the instructions for the next phase centers on that, which I highly doubt. Eldris declined once more. Shirama, let's go. The short officer voiced as he turned around. Ayanda. Shirama responded as she also turned around. If we ever get pitted against each other in any of the next phases, you guys are dead meat. Shirama added as he walked away. Nice to meet you too, Eldris stated with a smile as he waved while they walked away. There we go, making enemies again, Falco voiced out as he regained control from his alter ego. Man up, Timmy said in response while tapping his shoulder. ***, y'all are really getting influenced by Gustav's ability to attract trouble. Falco facepalmed while speaking. Sorry about that. Endrick apologized. You're not to blame for the behavior of others, Eldris said in response. The whole situation of turning on the others just because they're not a part of the MBO just didn't make sense to Eldris. It was a competitive selection, so he felt it was understandable if they were pitted against each other due to conditions or instructions. In that case, he wouldn't hesitate to do what needed to be done, but he decided he won't be a part to what these ones were planning just for the sake of leaving the slots open to just MBO officers. Well, need to watch out though. Hopefully the next phase will be favorable enough so we don't get jumped by our fellow officers. He stated. I'm sure we're not the only ones who refused them, so it won't be that bad, but we definitely have time, be careful. Eldris responded with a look of contemplation. The second phase will be starting in 30 seconds. A loud voice rang out in the next instant. For more chapters, please visit pen0vl.com. It's a kind of station, a workstation within a live mixed-breed underground. Gustav thought with a look of confusion and astonishment. He looked around the place, and could see it was different from how the internal structure of this creature would look. There were screens and holographic systems everywhere with small cells and cryogenic tubes in different areas. They had used some type of space tool to construct a workstation within this creature. Safely too at that, because the creature was alive and in good health as well. Gustav could see that this place had been abandoned. There was not a single live soul within the body of this creature, and the holographic screens were all white. Looks like they assumed I might locate this place and fled quickly. That was really fast, Gustav thought with a slightly bummed look. God Eyes has been activated. Gustav paused in his movement after activating God Eyes. He initially didn't do so because he was still hiding his presence, and activating it might give off a little energy discharge, but now that he knew no one was here, he decided to activate it. They set traps? Gustav questioned internally as he finally spotted a few things invisible to his naked eye initially. He also didn't sense the traps earlier because the Jenxidus had done a really good job in installing them. Looks like it will be impossible to try and retrieve or steal data from this workstation. The entire place will go up in smithereens if anyone tried to do that. Gustav noticed he almost set one of the traps off. He was glad he hadn't made contact with anything or even gone in too far. He was practically still at the entrance. This is some really crazy place they created. Gustav had to admit it was insane. He decided not to trip any of the traps off and leave the place. The aim was to make sure the Jenxidus never knew he was here in the first place, and he would do just that. They would certainly be alerted if this place got blown to smithereens and realized someone came here, but if he was to leave without causing any alarm, he was sure they would be less wary. This was the first step to fooling the enemy. Even though he didn't gain much from coming here, he was glad he found this place. They certainly have more places like this. Interesting. A smirk appeared on Gustav's face as he moved out. So we can't go down there? Gradier Xanatus questioned Gustav after he arrived within the aircraft. No. The traps will be triggered the moment any presence is detected. I'm afraid you guys can't get any data from there, especially since they already fled. Gustav explained. Damn, what a waste. Gradier Xanatus voiced out with a slightly disappointed look. I did get something though. Chapter 1072. Damn, what a waste. Gradier Xanatus voiced out with a slightly disappointed look. I did get something though. Gustav disclosed, causing Gradier Xanatus' face to light up with a look of interest. Which is? Gradier Xanatus questioned. Hold on, Gustav said as he placed his index finger on his forehead. We'll transfer the little data I was able to retrieve without activating the trap. The system voiced in his mind. After a few seconds, a holographic screen within the aircraft popped up and multiple rows of data began displaying along with a few footage. How did you get this? Gradier Xanatus questioned with an awe-stricken expression. That is not important. Focus on the data and you guys can make plans based on what is revealed from there. Gustav responded. We'll get some people to analyze it so we can find out more on the Jenxidus. Gradier Xanatus nodded. Keep me posted. Might not be able to get them today, but I plan to destroy them, Gustav stated as he took his seat. Today was a really long day. I want to go home and rest now, he added as he strapped in. Gradier Xanatus strapped in as well, and the aircraft proceeded to lift off into the sky after a couple of seconds. Gustav had decided he would go back to dealing with his issues and the matters he had to work on in the meantime. Getting rid of the Jenxidus wasn't a one-day work, and he was well aware of that. He still had multiple things he had to take care of before ISOP began, so he didn't really have much time. However, he did decide that if he completed the things on his list earlier, he would definitely join the ISOP training before it ended. There was nothing wrong with training since there was no such thing as over-preparation. Being more prepared increased Earth's chances of winning anyways. The selection should have begun by now. I trust they'll do well, Gustav said internally as he heaved a low sigh of relief. He knew there was nothing to be worried about since they even had Endrick as an addition on their side. So long as they weren't pitted against each other, Gustav didn't doubt that they would all get into the main team. So the higher the level of mixed breed we get rid of, the higher the points? Within an isolated room, an unknown dark-skinned girl questioned. Seems like it, a guy seating beside her responded. On a large screen in front of the three people seated here, they could see multiple participants moving around in a particular location. Within this location, they would occasionally bump into mixed breeds and battle with them. It's so boring to sit here and just watch, she voiced out with a dissatisfied tone next. Sheila, can't you just sit in one place without complaining for a second? The other guy spoke once more. Not unlike you, I like fun. You love boredom too much, Vin. Sheila shrugged while voicing out with a ridiculing expression. I'll just ignore you for the rest of the selection, Vin said while closing his eyes and folding his arms. Vin. She jumped up from her seat at this point and moved towards him. His face scrunched as he felt a finger poking at his face. Oi, Vin, you can't ignore me, She laughed childishly as she poked his face repeatedly. She moved to the left and poked his forehead, then moved to his back and poked the side of his neck. At this point his face was squeezed up as he displayed a look of annoyance. Hey! He grabbed her finger at this point as he opened his eyes. Stop being a nuisance, he shouted. You're no fun, Vin, She chuckled repeatedly as she proceeded to withdraw her finger. I'll just play with the beautiful sis instead, she said while turning to the side to stare at the other girl who had been here all this time. For more chapters, please visit pen0vl. It was a very beautiful girl with 3 pigtails and a violet-colored hair tie wrapped around her forehead. She had been sitting here silently this whole time watching the holographic screens that displayed the participants going through the second phase. Sheila moved towards her and reached out to try and poke her, but the moment she did, the girl turned to the side to stare at her. Eek, her eyes look scary. Sheila paused her movement as she voiced out with a frightened tone. But I still want to play with her, Sheila added as a smile appeared on her face, and she reached out to try and poke the girl once more. If you're bored, you could go and join them. I'm sure they'll be willing to let you join the selection, Elevra voiced out, causing Sheila to pause. Sheila placed her fingers on her lips as she donned a contemplative expression. That sounds fun, but they're too weak. I'd destroy every one of them, she voiced out and added a playful chuckle afterwards. Elevra didn't bother responding after hearing this and turned to face the screen afterwards. What's the head tie for sis? Sheila questioned with an intrigued expression as she began running her fingers across the head tie on Elevra's head. Sis? Elevra said with a look of confusion. Yes, you're my sis, Neil. We'll work together in the future, Sheila said with a look of enthusiasm as she grabbed Elevra's hands and held them together to her chest with a caring look. Sis, I can tell there is immense power hidden underneath that head tie. We'll conquer planets together, Sheila voiced out with an intense look. Okay. Elevra retained an expressionless look as she answered. The situation was all too weird to her, but she either disliked or liked it, so she remained neutral. Sheila, don't bother the young lady, Ben voiced from the side after hearing Sheila's incessant babblings. May you didn't want to play with me, so sis will do a better job, Sheila voiced out with a look of defiance as she stared in Ben's direction. Both of them began arguing back and forth, and Sheila proceeded to move towards him and bit his ear after their argument turned heated. What a strange girl. Elevra could not help but say this internally. It was still a shock to her that Sheila was one of the 2 people who she sensed to be kilo ranked earlier. It turned out the others might be lucky, since Sheila already had a reserved slot on the main team like her and Gustav, so she didn't have to participate in the selection. Pen DN0vel, COM Vin was also reserved a slot, so that made it 4 of them who were reserved a slot from the very beginning. Vin and Sheila seemed to be familiar with each other, as Vin didn't seem bothered about her personality like he was already used to it. Unfortunately, Vin wasn't the other mixed blood who was kilo ranked. Elevra had already sensed his bloodline to be at the peak of Echo rank, which was higher than hers but still not up to kilo rank. She was a bit surprised that the other kilo ranked was not reserved a slot, whereas herself and another Echo rank were given slots. Despite Gustav being an echo rank as well, she didn't question that he got a spot, especially because Gustav could not be compared to normal mixed bloods, so his case still made sense. Thinking about it, the only way she could make sense of her own case was the fact that she was younger. Sheila and Vin were both officers in the MBO and had been in service for up to a year, so there was no doubt that they were at least 20-year-old. Despite Sheila acting all childish, it made sense how she was a kilo rank being up to 20 years old. What she said about destroying the others if she entered the selection was not in any way false, as she wasn't just a kilo ranked but a third step kilo ranked. She was no doubt the most powerful mixed blood participating in ISUP, with the exception of Gustav, since they couldn't judge Gustav's prowess by normal means. The most powerful was definitely between them both. Elevra decided to stop thinking about this for now and focused more on a particular part of the screen. They're doing well so far. I hope they make the main team, she said internally as she watched. That's a level 69 furry giant successfully dealt with. He voiced out as he stared at the corpse of the creature on the ground in front. It only gives 100 points, Falco added. That's 10 points each since there's 10 of us, Angie clarified. That way would get better points when their collective effort in putting it down, Ildris voiced out. Chapter 1073. That way would get better points when their collective effort in putting it down, Ildris voiced out. They all agreed with Ildris' point of view and proceeded to move forward. This phase of the selection was one where individuality was a better option. This was due to the fact that killing certain levels of mixed breed brought about points. When they dealt with the mixed breed together, the points would have to be shared amongst them, but if a person was to deal with a mixed breed solo, all the points would go only to that one person. The reasons they still decided to do this as a team was not only because combined effort made it easier to get rid of higher-leveled mixed breed, but because any one of them could bump into the officers they met in the waiting room earlier. Meeting them individually would be a problem, but if they were together when that happened, they could easily watch each other's back. The four had a large group of MBO officers they had managed to sway, so there was no doubt that meeting individually would end up bad for anyone from their team, perhaps besides Angie, since she was pretty fast. They just decided they would have to deal with higher-leveled mixed breeds together, especially since it wasn't very wise dealing with one without a team anyways. There was no limit to how many points the participants could accumulate, either was there an announcement on the number of points needed to proceed to the next phase. It was obvious that only the participants that had managed to accumulate the highest points before the timer ran out would successfully move on to the next phase. Currently they still had over 22 hours left since it was a 24 hours long phase. The ribbons that were initially in their grasp was now wrapped around their wrists, and displayed a screen which had numbers on them. This screen happened to be displaying the timer as well as the points accumulated by the participant wearing it. It also had one more function, which was the detection of nearby mixed breeds with its level. Level 57 Noix mixed breed up northwards, Falco voiced out. Too low, we're skipping, Ildris stated as they made a small turn to alter their direction. They were currently on a sparse forest path with some trees scattered across the place, but the further they traveled the sparser the forest turned. Each of the trees here were the height of high-rise buildings with a bunch of silver-purplish leaves all around the branches. These branches had turned into a canopy that almost completely blocked out the rays of light from above. It was as if they were moving in darkness currently, but mixed bloods of their level all had honed senses, so this wasn't a problem. The location of the current phase had some really weird terrains, but they still had over 20 hours to figure things out. They kept running for a few more minutes before they got another mixed breed on the radar. A level 92 tar bird mixed breed, Falco announced. It might be a bit inconveniencing since it is capable of flight, but we can defeat it. That's 500 worth of points, Ildris voiced out. Everyone nodded in response, ready to engage as they charged forward past a few trees. They spotted a massive nest string together and held from multiple angles by vine-looking threads. This nest was really as gigantic as multiple buildings joined, and there was no doubt that the tar bird mixed breed was a large one. THHAIHHHH, A loud shrieking sound reverberated all across the vicinity as the creature sensed the presence of intruders. The nest shook vigorously as a head with a massive beak peered through the top. The bird had two massive black eyes by the side of its head and two smaller red ones side by side in the middle. Pan, unveil, com. Its head was dark and murky looking. It stood up completely and raised its wings, which were extremely gigantic as well. Its entire body had red glowing lines around, while black patches that looked very thick covered most parts. Yosh, everyone, let's do this! He shouted as he opened a vortex the instant the creature flapped its wings. Everyone spread out in the next instant as the creature blasted forward. Whoosh, heavy winds spread across the place with a single flap of its wings, causing the trees around to arc and leaves to be blown across the place. Thhhhhhhhhhh. The creature landed where they stood initially, but everyone had managed to move from that spot on time. He had gone through his vortex, arriving hundreds of feet in the air. He began free falling towards the creature as he stretched forth his hand to open another vortex. For more chapters, please visit pan0vl. So whoosh, Angie was speeding around the creature, increasing its ire and confusing as it found it difficult to react to her speed. Dark Falco had taken over and was charging towards the creature from behind, while Endrick was preparing a telekinetic attack from the left. Glade had conjured her massive red glowing sickles and flung them from the right. Teeny was charging forward as well as a reddish light surrounded his figure. Matilda had taken on a silvery armor form beside him and held out a lance that was radiating with immense energy. Eldris was the only one leaping towards the creature from up front with his eyes closed. The creature could tell it was getting flanked from all angles despite Engie confusing its senses by speeding around it. It spread out its wings and flapped once more in a bid to move, but the massive vortex he had opened up appeared right below it. Zzhhhhrhhhhh. The vortex closed up around the legs of the tar bird, trapping it in place. Whoosh, even after flapping its wings, it was unable to get out of ES vortex that had trapped it in place. At this same instant the multiple attacks arrived before it. Endrick's wave of telekinetic wall rushed forward and slammed into the creature from the side multiple times, causing loud sounds of collision to reverberate across the vicinity. Glade's sickles increased in size as they traveled forward, becoming more than 40 feet in length each before colliding with the body of the mixed breed. Rhea, who had been conjuring multiple massive boulders, sent them forward with intensity, causing them to crash repeatedly into the creature's back. Eldris, Angie, Matilda and Teemy all attacked in close quarters as they rained barrages on fists on the body of the creature after closing in on it. After making contact with its skin, they realized how truly sturdy the creature's body was and urged for the others to keep sending attacks towards it. He had landed on its back at this point, but he didn't attack because he had to hold concentration for the vortex he used in trapping the lower half of the creature's body. The mixed breed was not weak at all, so it was very difficult to maintain this, and he knew a single slip-up could cause him to lose the hold, so focus was necessary. Their attacks were working, but they were still far from completely dealing with the creature because its outer covering was like an armor that reduced the impact of their attacks a lot. Thhhhhhhhhhh. The creature shrieked out again in pain as black smoke suddenly began phasing out of its body. Everyone had looks of confusion as they spotted the black smoke phasing out of its body. "We have to distance ourselves right now," Falco yelled out as he seemed to be the only one aware of what this meant. However, the smoke had completely spread across thousands of feet in barely an instant, and was still spreading, so they had found themselves within it before they even had the chance to react. Everyone turned around at this point to distance themselves, but in the next instant, boom! 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 A series of explosions rang out across the vicinity as the smokes began exploding. The region was instantly turned into an explosion ground as these explosions kept ringing out repeatedly. Each one was pretty powerful, and with so many exploding at once, the destructive ripples getting spread across the vicinity was no joke. Twish, a silver streak strode across the region back and forth without getting affected northwards, while a vortex also appeared thousands of feet away and a couple of people jumped out of it. Black smoke also phased out, but the vortex quickly closed up just as it had appeared. He had opened vortexes for some of them at the moment Falco advised them to distance themselves, while Angie had used her speed to escape the AOC. Angie could move as fast as 300,000 feet in a single instant in her base form, so she was able to carry others back and forth before the explosion could spread across the entire area. Besides that, she was fast enough to evade the explosions, so fortunately they all managed to get away from there with the exception of one person. Chapter 1074. Besides that, she was fast enough to evade the explosions, so fortunately they all managed to get away from there with the exception of one person. "Where is Endrick?" Ildris voiced out as he looked around. Angie and he yelled out each other's names simultaneously. "You didn't get him?" He questioned with a worried tone. "I thought you did," Angie responded with a disturbed look as well. Everyone turned around to stare at the AOC of the explosions. Despite and Angie getting them a far distance from the location, the impact from the non-stop blasts were still spreading to their position. The winds generated from it were causing their clothes to flap intensely as they squinted their eyes. "Shit," Timmy voiced out as he spotted the continuous damage. "The tar bird uses this ability when has been put in a position where there is no other option. It causes millions of explosions within a particular time frame, and any enemy within range would be blasted to smithereens, leaving not even a single atomic body part left," Falco explained. "Angie, can you get him?" Ildris questioned. "The explosions are currently too concentrated. If she runs in at the moment, she will be affected," Falco answered before she could. "He'll still go," Angie voiced out as she adopted a running form. "It's already ending," Falco stated. "What?" Everyone voiced out with looks of confusion as they heard Falco say this. Truly, just as he had voiced out, in the next instant explosions began to reduce. "It is expected that after this ability wears off, the tar bird would go into a weakened state due to the high amount of energy needed to trigger such an attack. It is also expected that anyone within the concentrated vicinity would be destroyed too, so," Falco explained with a tone of implication. "That's not..." Just as Matilda was about speaking, they sensed a violet outburst of energy from up ahead. "Huh!" Everyone was instantly on the alert. ZZHRRHHHHE. He opened up a vortex and they began to jump in. As they arrived within a gigantic crater covering more than 50,000 feet, they met a gigantic corpse. A familiar figure was standing on the blackened ground, right in front of the massive creature's corpse. The corpse was split into two halves according to what they could see, and blood oozed out like a fountain. They couldn't help but stare at him with bewildered expressions. "Endrick?" He voiced out. Sconds earlier, before the explosions began, Endrick waved his fingers in a weird manner within the covering of the black smoke. An invisible telekinetic dome appeared around him in the next instant, and pulled all the black smoke out of the dome with him. "Will empowerment!" Endrick clasped his hands together as he strengthened the telekinetic dome surrounding his figure. Boom! 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 The explosions began ringing out repeatedly, causing the ground he was standing on to begin crumbling as it sank. However, even with this, Endrick remained focused in keeping the dome active while the explosions kept ringing out. His legs buckled occasionally, and he was so close to losing it, but he managed to scale through. This was due to the fact that even though the explosions were very destructive within a particular range, they didn't last for a very long time. Immediately after the explosions ended, Endrick got rid of the barrier and breathed in and out profusely. Why? He waved his hands and the smoke surrounding him instantly vanished from the wind generated. "It's in a weakened state." He spotted the tar bird up ahead making some weird sounds as it stood in place. Its entire flesh seemed like it was wriggling as well, which also depicted that its skin might be softer than before. "Time to die." Endrick's eyes turned silvery blue as he joined his right index finger to the middle on and raised it. A burst of energy was sent forth from his being as he charged himself up, causing the creature to be alerted. However, the others were alerted as well upon this outburst of energy. The creature raised its wings as quickly as it could, ready to flap it and run away, but Endrick was quicker. For more chapters, please visit pan0vel.com. Telekinetic division, he voiced out as he raised his hand with the two fingers joined together. He flung it down in the next instant like he was swinging at someone with a blade. Why? An intense and sharp telekinetic line cut forward crazily, causing the grounds to split open with cracks as it traveled towards the creature. Upon collision, it instantly cut through the creature from the middle of its head down to its rear area. The attack kept traveling forward for another 3,000 feet, destroying everything in its path before it stopped. The creature that had managed to flap once only had both halves of its body ascend into air for a few feet before they fell back towards the ground with blood gushing out intensely. Endrick's eyes returned to normal at the same instant. A vortex appeared behind him. Endrick! He heard a familiar voice call out to him. He turned around at this point and spotted the cavalry. Are you all right? Eldris questioned. Never been better, Endrick responded with a slight nod. I took care of the creature, he added. We can see that, Angie said as she moved forward to inspect the creature. Pa Endi a novel. The points they updated, Timmy stated as he stared at the ribbon strapped to his wrist. 50 points, Rhea confirmed. Everyone else nodded, as well as they had also gotten equal points from the creature getting destroyed despite Endrick being the person who landed the finishing blow. Now it looked like Endrick was strong enough to take care of such high-level mixed breed himself. Falco, you know better about the mixed breeds than anyone else, so warn us earlier about such situations next time, Eldris said. I didn't think would inflict enough damage on it within such little time that would cause it to use that, my bad. Falco responded with an apologetic tone. I didn't remember till I saw the smoke. Gustav is way more knowledgeable than I am in the mixed breed aspect, though. These were Falco thoughts internally as he recalled Gustav was responsible for making Falco learn more about mixed breeds. This was mostly due to Falco looking for an answer for having Dark Falco within him, and Gustav put him up to study in all parameters. Everyone has around 400 points now, he voiced out. Let's keep moving then. We still have a whole lot to hunt and a high number of points to accumulate, Eldris urged as he began to move forward. They all followed after him with looks of enthusiasm. Within a large warm bath, Gustav heaved a sigh of relief. At least the house has been repaired, he muttered as he leaned his back against the wall within the bath. The soapy water reached a little above his abs and his chest was on display. There was an occasional golden spark in the middle of his chest, but it would disappear the instant it gleamed, so it was barely noticeable. What do you plan on doing about the Jenxidus? The system questioned. You live in me, read my mind, Gustav responded. I don't want to go through the trouble. You guard your thoughts a lot these days, the system stated with an irritated tone. Oh? Ha, that's just my mental state getting more powerful, Gustav clarified. I would still have access to your inner thoughts even though it proved very difficult, but now it's like I can't even invade anymore, the system pointed out. Of course, that's my inner mind. Man needs a little privacy, lurker, Gustav chuckled as he voiced out. Humph. I live in you, there shouldn't be any privacy at all. The system voice had turned sour as the girly tone turned shrill. Haha, no, TCH. Anyways, I don't really have plans for them at the moment. With the information we got the last time and my analysis of the current status, it's up to them to make investigations, Gustav began voicing out. As I have mentioned before, they most likely have other workstations underground just like the last one, and these workstations will not be abandoned because they have no idea I already found one of them. The MBO just needs to find the locations now. I will be able to act after they have done so, Gustav added with a tone of interest. So till that time, it's back to working on the space device and scientist Sill's research? The system inquired. Precisely, Gustav responded. Especially since you have failed to give me more information on the incoming doom, so I'll have find out myself, Gustav added. Patience. I will reveal something to you after the ISOP, the system disclosed. Chapter 1075s. Patience. I will reveal something to you after the ISOP. The system disclosed. Meh, that's what you keep saying. Gustav responded with a dismissive tone. Remember what I told you about not revealing so much as it would draw the timing of events even more closer than before. The system stated. Serene, which also means I have to figure most of it out myself. Gustav mumbled with a look of dissatisfaction. TCH. Gustav ignored the system for the rest of the time he was in the bath. There was still so much he didn't know, but he also still had lots to do within the time frame. He was just glad he knew what steps to take in the meantime. He wasn't stuck yet. Bang! 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 Boom! Another hole was blasted through a massive spider with whitish look, and sizzling lava like blood began drizzling out of it. There were 10 people gathered around it, unleashing powerful attacks of all sorts, which had inflicted multiple damages on them. The creature that looked battered due to their attacks, with multiple holes in its bod and a couple of its legs missing. After another hole was blasted through the creature, it finally fell to the ground in defeat. Its legs twitched for a bit before the creature finally stopped moving. That's another 60 points. Endrick voiced out as he fell from the air and landed right behind the corpse. Everyone else checked their ribbons, and could see their points went up by 60. It was a joint effort, so the points were shared equally. Not too far behind them were the corpses of other large creatures similar in look to this one. They mostly looked smaller than this particular one, even though they were all large. Multiple holes, cracks and craters could be seen all across the vicinity, which depicted they had really wreaked havoc upon this place. The corpses scattered across left a pungent smell across the air. Plop! Blerg! He fell to his knees as he emptied out the contents of his stomach. Engie, who was standing beside him, squatted and rubbed his back as he kept emptying out the contents of his stomach. Sorry, man, Falco voiced as he moved closer. Everyone had a sympathetic look on their face as they spotted E puking. They already knew the reason for this. No worries, he'll become numb to it soon, he said as he breathed in and out profusely. A bottle of water appeared in Angie's hand in the next instant, and she passed it along to E. Thanks, he said before drinking. Where the hell did those bastards come from anyways? After sipping a particular volume from the bottle, he voiced while standing to his feet. It's a colony, Falco responded. Isn't colony a term used for a group of ants? He questioned with a confused tone. Not the point here, emphasis on group, Falco stated. They almost got the jump on us, he said while heaving out a sigh of relief. In the meantime, don't use your vortexes to rip a being from the inside out, Ildris proposed. Why not? He asked. Ildris stared at him like he was hinting, Are you really asking me that right now? Oh, this? Nah, I'm good. They'll have to get used to it anyways. He waved it off like it was nothing. It's detrimental. I can sense it, Ildris voiced in response. Nope, it's not, he worded with a light chuckle while shrugging it off. Ildris' face lit up with a look of suspiciousness before he spoke again. All right then, but still, take it easy, Ildris advised. I'm as unkillable as a cockroach, don't worry about me. He brushed it off once more. A cockroach would be killed with a single stomp though, Falco voiced from the side. Shut up, Falco, why are you ruining my moment? He yelled out with a look of distaste. Just stating facts, Falco replied. Anyways, we all have over 4,000 points each now. Should we take a little break or keep grinding for points? Ildris questioned while glancing at everyone. Wasn't it announced that there are a limited number of mixed breeds? Matilda questioned. That is true, Falco added. Yeah, but do you guys want to take a break to recover your energies? We've not stopped for over 14 hours now, Ildris questioned. For more chapters, please visit pan0vl.com. I want to keep going, me too, there's no need for break, we're strong enough to handle the entire 24 hours. They voiced out their answer one after the other, causing Ildris to nod. After they all agreed to keep going, Eldris turned to stare at E again. What you looking at me for? I told you I could keep going. He voiced out before proceeding to open a vortex. Let's go, he voiced out before going through it. They all proceeded to follow after him. The second phase of the selection had been ongoing for close to 15 hours at this point, and they hadn't taken a single break in hunting down the mixed breeds. They had destroyed mixed breeds ranging from level 50 to 98 during this time frame. The creature they had just handled a while back was a level 98 mixed breed, and although it had been difficult to defeat, especially since it had many underlings, they were able to pull it off. This was mostly due to E, who went on a killing spree by opening vortexes within most of these creatures when they were put in a precarious situation. Everyone witnessed how truly powerful he could be and his capacity to destroy anyone within moments. Since the mixed breeds in this location they were transported to were limited, they wanted to make sure they gathered enough points before the other participants made them scarce. Eldris, Endrick and the others kept moving from place to place across the location, slaughtering mixed breeds and gathering more points as the time passed. They occasionally bumped into other participants in groups during this endeavor, but they made sure to head to another location upon seeing if they spotted a team was taking care of the mixed breed they were after. Time went by very quickly, and before everyone knew it, only around an hour was left before the second phase would come to an end. The group was still moving around at this time, and they hadn't come across another mixed breed in the last 30 minutes of moving around this region. Maybe we should take that break now, Glade suggested. He had a contemplative look on his face. There is a possibility every mixed breed in this region has been killed already, Endrick voiced out. His analysis didn't seem wrong, as the limited number of mixed breeds has already been stated earlier. With over 400 powerful mixed bloods put together in a secluded location like this, total annihilation before 24 hours was a possibility. I still have a lot of energy left though, Timmy stated. Me too, Rhea voiced out. And me, most of them added. The issue is with finding a mixed breed. If we keep checking and we don't see anyone in the next 5 minutes, we'll be taking that break, Eldris said. He also wasn't out of energy, so he was okay with them still checking, but if the mixed breeds had been completely slaughtered, he felt there was no point. They kept moving forward and Angie speed across the vicinity checking for creatures around. Swoosh, a little after 3 minutes, she appeared in front of everyone and voiced out. There's one up ahead. Everyone stared in the direction she pointed at, and proceeded to start heading northwest. Angie sped up once more, getting ahead of them, and they activated their bloodlines ready for battle. They kept moving for about 20 seconds at full speed, and despite not being as quick as Angie, they were still pretty fast. Where is it, Angie? Matilda questioned after noticing Angie's figure had disappeared. They found themselves on a spacious area void of trees but still surrounded by the forestry areas. Where is the mixed breed? I still can't sense the presence of any creature around here. He voiced with a confused expression. Guys, something is... Matilda didn't get to complete her statement as the ground began quaking intensely. What's going on? Falco yelled out with a look of confusion. The ground suddenly leveled and began sinking quickly. Eldris, Endrick and Eve, who had the quickest reactions in the group, leaped upwards the moment the ground began quaking initially. However, the instant they did so, a massive reddish-colored cube appeared around the vicinity. Bang! They all slammed into the solid frame of the barrier that suddenly appeared, along with Falco and the others who had reached a bit slower. They were all affected, with the exception of E. He had created a vortex and pulled himself out of the AoE very quickly. Chapter 1076. As he appeared quite the distance away, he noticed everyone else was trapped within. He didn't waste time questioning what was happening at the moment, and proceeded to open a vortex that could help the others leave that area. The instant he opened a vortex, he spotted a gigantic shadow looming over him. He looked up and spotted 2 massive arms joined slamming down towards him. He wasn't able to react to this quickly as he was focused on the vortex. Bang! The 2 fists attached to the top of the arms slammed into him heavily from above, causing flattening the entire vicinity from the impact. KRRRRYYCHHHH. A crater was instantly formed from the impact of the blow, which caused shockwaves to spread from the vicinity. The vortex he opened within the entrapment that had been set for them disappeared the instant the blow was received. "Damn, it's gone!" Falco voiced with a tone of frustration as he noticed the vortex had disappeared a moment after it appeared. They were currently all at the bottom of the pit that had been created after the ground got leveled, with the exception of just a single person. One person managed to get into the vortex before it could disappear. Boom! The sound of the impact from the blow on the surface caused the underground to tremble as well. "We have to get out of here as soon as possible." Not knowing what was going on above, Eildris voiced with a tone of urgency. "Let's hope they will be okay till we get out of here." Matilda voiced with a hopeful tone as everyone prepared to attack the barrier, tripping them within. Above the surface, he felt like he just got rammed through by multiple mountains as he opened his eyes. His sight was still very blurry as his eyes flickered. "What is going on?" he questioned internally as he slightly raised his head while laying on the ground. "Take him instantly before he saves the others." At the same instant the loud voice was heard. He spotted a figure descending towards him with force. He was not in a state to evade the incoming attack, which closed in on him in an instant. Bang! Another loud collision rang out as shockwaves spread across the vicinity once more. The figure that was descending let out a surprised expression as he found himself blocked, inches away from making contact with the man with an ashen white face, ram horns, and a 7-foot-tall frame with muscular bearing turned to the side as he sensed something. Bang! An invisible wall driving at insane speed slammed into his figure, sending him flying. His entire figure spiraled multiple times in mid-air before slamming into the ground and tearing cracks across it. "Are you okay?" Endrick voiced from the side as he approached "Yeah. I didn't expect that." He rubbed his head as he stood to his feet. "Where the hell did these guys come from?" He yelled out as he noticed they had been surrounded. "It's them," Endrick stated as he spotted familiar figures. The edges of the crater was currently surrounded by up to 11 mixed bloods clad in MBO uniforms. Out of these 12, 4 were familiar faces, which were none other than the 4 they had met in the waiting room before the second phase of the selection began. Yonda, Shirama, and the twin brothers. Endrick had just attacked one of twin brothers a while ago after saving E from getting crushed, but they were completely outnumbered in this situation. "He managed to send Ire flying with just a single attack. We can't underestimate the newbies," the other twin brother voiced out. "Deal with the Dark One instantly before he frees the others." The shortest, who was also the leader of the gang, Yonda, yelled out. Eyes squinted as he stretched his hand forward in a bid to conjure a vortex, but at the same instant one of the enemies appeared right beside him. This opponent had long dagger-like claws that were already sweeping towards hands in a bid to cut them off. Endrick's eyeballs shifted to the side as he followed the attack with precision. He turned with his right palm straightening while also thrusting it forward. Even though the other person seemed faster and was close to successfully landing the attack, Endrick didn't even need to make contact with them. A telekinetic force blasted forward from his palm, slamming heavily into the opponent. Bang! Ugh! The opponent groaned and puked out blood as they got blasted away. It was very difficult to guard against Endrick's telekinetic force unless the opponent could use the same amount of force to repel it. They would have to see it coming and measure correctly they could pull it off. "His will is very powerful, be careful," Yonda voiced out as he also approached from up ahead. At the same instant Endrick managed to blast the other opponent away. Another one had appeared on other side. Endrick, who was ready to protect so he could successfully conjure another vortex for the others to be freed, had difficulty, as 2 other opponents flanked him from the sides. At the same moment a red energy orb had been sent forward and others were also sending forth powerful attacks to deal with them. Endrick's eyes turned silvery blue as he raised his right foot and stomped it on the ground. Bang! Shruawam, a telekinetic barrier pushed forth from his frame, stirring up dust as it surrounded himself and bang! Bang! Boom! Multiple powerful attacks landed on the telekinetic barrier in the next instant, causing Endrick to groan as he gritted his teeth from the pressure. You didn't waste this opportunity and finally opened a vortex that appeared within the barricaded pit they had trapped the others in. Thanks! Yonda yelled out as stood outside Endrick's telekinetic barrier. Chapter 1077. Thanks! Yonda yelled out as stood outside Endrick's telekinetic barrier. A lady with silver floating hair nodded as she glowed with whitish light and moved forward. Huh! Endrick muttered as he noticed the weird energy coming from this lady. His eyes widened in shock in the next instant as she walked right through his telekinetic barrier unaffected. Bam! She took Endrick by surprise as she suddenly drove a fist into his gut. Endrick was blasted backwards by punch, and his telekinetic barrier instantly disappeared. Shit, Endrick cussed internally as his body traveled across the air from the force of the attack. He had gotten surrounded once more and attacks were heading towards him from every direction. His eyes turned serious as he pointed at he twirled his fingers. Zaya vortex appeared right beneath him, and he sank into it in the next instant. The multiple attacks missed as he disappeared. Endrick, who was initially blasted away, did a flip in midair and landed on his feet many feet backwards. Thanks, he said internally, and a green glow on his forehead gleamed twice. He's up there! Someone amongst the group of opponents yelled out as they pointed up. He was falling from the sky, but they noticed he wasn't alone. Damn it! He got them out! Yonda voiced as he noticed the multiple figures falling from the vortex that had appeared up above as well. Everyone had sour looks as they stared upwards, and some of them began to send out attacks while this group was still in mid-air. Matilda's body wriggled as her body excreted silvery substance which formed a solid armor that covered her entire being up. The instant she finished doing this, she pushed forth her palm and the same silvery substance formed a massive silvery shield below them as they fell. Boom! 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 Sounds of explosions rang out as the attacks coming from below collided with her silvery circular shield without causing any effect. In a matter of moments they landed on the ground with a loud thud right in the middle of the group of 12 that had orchestrated the ambush. Ildris scanned across the vicinity for the enemies he had already sensed from the moment he was buried in the hole with the others. I thought as much, it was you guys, he voiced out as he spotted the familiar-looking faces. What did you do with Angie? Matilda questioned with a loud tone as her voice sounded a bit metallic due to the silvery armor covering her up. Oh, your teammate? Yonda questioned as he stood in an attacking format with the others. Where is she? She would never lead us into a trap, Falco said as his entire body began radiating with a dark wave of energy. Everyone seemed to have figured that the person they were initially following, who led them into a trap, was not Angie. Ha ha ha, you are indeed correct, that wasn't your teammate, he stated as he turned to the side to stare at someone. He seemed to be staring at a lady with silver floating hair by his side. Her entire frame was glowing with whitish light. She turned to the side and stretched forth her hand to touch Yonda. Upon making contact with him, her body emitted a blinding light, and in the next instant she had taken his exact image. What? Ildris and the others voiced out with looks of surprise as they witnessed this. Mimicry. A pseudo-shaped shifting bloodline, Ildris muttered as he stared at them warily. As you can guess already, Finks is able to mimic the form of anything she lays her hands on, Yonda said with a light chuckle after he noticed their confused stares. Endrick, who was several meters behind, had a look of understanding as he also witnessed the scene. She was able to easily phase through my telekinetic barrier because of this. She must have somehow mimicked its attributes, Endrick analyzed. Finks was the one they had followed initially, as it seemed these officers already got Angie after she went to scout ahead for them. It turned out that she could also use the abilities of anyone or anything she mimicked, which made the whole situation very troublesome. Their enemies were in no way weak, and there was still over 30 minutes left before the second phase will come to an end. How did she even manage to lay hands on Angie? They're quite capable, Matilda wondered internally, but everyone had similar thoughts. With Angie's speed, it would be close to impossible to lay hands on her except they set some kind of trap that worked against her. Where is she? What have you done to her? The darkness emitting from Falco's body kept increasing by the second. Worry about yourselves. We're about to send you incompetent officers out of this place. You don't deserve to be here. Yonda yelled out as he began to channel his bloodline energy once more. KRRYYCHH, his right arm began making creaking sounds as it increased in size and changed to a glowing reddish color with golden lines. Everyone else activated their abilities as well as they prepared to deal with Endrick and the others. The group stared at each other for an instant, and already decided on which enemies to handle. Eldris, feeling the intensity from the channeling of bloodlines up ahead, knew it wouldn't be best for him to hold back in such a situation. Whoosh! A loud outburst of energy blasted forth as the two groups charged at one another. It was down to 9 against 12 since Angie was currently missing, so 3 from the group would have to take on 6 opponents, while the others handled the rest. Eldris went for the most powerful one, Yonda, who happened to be emitting the highest bloodline energy. Hee. Yonda chuckled as they approached each other, and he stretched his enlarged arm forward. Cosmic finger! He voiced out while joining his index finger to his thumb. Chapter 1078s. Cosmic finger! He voiced out while joining his index finger to his thumb. The instant they arrived in front of each other, Yonda flicked hard at Eldris. A surge of bright crimson energy mixed with golden streams phased out from his fingertip. The energy blasted forward with destructive intensity. Eldris was shocked at how much power this simple attack carried, and it happened to have been released at point-blank range. He stopped his attack and opened his eyes at that moment. Zriath. Yonda let out a surprised expression as the vicinity lost color the moment Eldris' eyes were open, and Eldris suddenly disappeared right before the surge could hit him. Fwyor boom! The energy raged on for hundreds of kilometers, destroying everything in its path, and leaving another area of cracks up ahead along with uprooted trees. The others battling around had already distanced themselves from these two who were assumed to be the strongest so they don't get hit by residual energy. Eldris appeared right behind Yonda with his palm pushing forward intensely. Yonda instantly sensed the presence behind him and turned around at the last moment, while waving his massive human-sized hand. Bang! Collision was made as both palms collided, sending another destructive ripples across the vicinity. Ugh! Eldris groaned as he was sent blasting backwards intensely, while urge to puke blood arose from deep within. Yonda decided not to give him any breathing space and lunged forward right after him with another attack. Cosmic penetration! His index finger glowed up again as he thrusted it forward with intensity like he was pointing in a direction. Eldris could sense pressure on his body like a searing heat clawing away on his skin and trying to break through it before the attack even made contact. He knew that if this attack made contact with him, it would most likely rip through him. On the other side, he battled the twins, Ire and Fildhor. He still held a grudge for the one who had attacked him twice, and would have succeeded the second time had it not been for Endrick. Ire and Fildhor had such good synergy that it reminded him of himself and Gustav. In this case their synergy was even better, as they didn't even leave blind spots or any weaknesses to exploit while they attacked together. This was to be expected since they were twins. Either ways, they were battling against who could get himself out of any situation so long as he didn't have to worry about others, so they hadn't managed to land a single hit since the battle began. Both of them had bloodline abilities that complemented each other, with Ire being immensely strong and Fildhor defensive capabilities. Zing 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 zing. He had already opened over 50 vortexes around them and would occasionally appear from unexpected ones to attack one of them. Fildhor's body would extend each time and turn black, blocking every hit, while Ire would try to attack the moment he appeared. Both sides were still unable to land any attack. He was quick enough to sink into another vortex once his attack missed. Time to separate them, time to use that so I can catch him. And Ire both had this thought simultaneously. Ire closed his eyes in the next instant. Reach! The moment he opened his eyes, he stared at a vortex several meters towards the east. So wish. He appeared right in front of it like his body was pulled there through gravity, and was about driving his fist right through the vortex when... Ire! Fildhor yelled out as he sensed something. The vortexes suddenly turned red before his fist could phase through, and in the next instant a large one appeared behind Ire with an immense suction force. Hi. Ugh! Ire's body lowered as he stabbed his fingers into the ground in a bid to stop himself from getting pulled into the vortex. The suction force was so intense, Ire could feel his skin getting ripped off his body as fought against its might. Ire! Fildhor yelled out again as he lunged forward to help his brother. However, in the same moment a vortex appeared in front of him with E.'s body flying out of it. It was like Fildhor had anticipated this and threw a fist directly at E.'s face as he dove towards him. He pushed his palm forward at the same moment to meet Fildhor's fist. However, before collision could be made, a small ring-like vortex appeared in front of E.'s palm. Fildhor couldn't stop his fist at this point, and his entire arm ended up phasing into the vortex, disappearing along the way. The vortex reached his shoulder area before stopping, but despite the fact that his arm disappeared, he could still feel it connected to his shoulder. This meant his arm was probably just sticking out of a vortex in another location. He tried pulling his arm out in the next instant, but he closed his palm into a fist, causing the vortex to tighten around his right shoulder area even more. You'll be losing your arm, for now. He voiced out as he squeezed his fist even tighter. Clank to Yes, surprise, Fildhor's arm was not cleaved off like he expected. Fildhor's arm had taken the black solid state he had been using to defend all this time. The vortex was finding it difficult to cleave through his arm due to the thickness. Fildhor's threw another fist at He at this point, thinking he had let his guard down. By the sidelines, he wasn't the only one handling two opponents. Endrick as well as Falco had to handle two opponents as well. Endrick happened to be taking on Finks, who had temporarily mimicked Yonda's form, and an unknown green-scaled MBO officer who kept sending out sound waves to interrupt Endrick. Yonda was very powerful, so it was a bother having to face him alone. Talk more of when his telekinesis kept getting disrupted with sound waves. Chapter 1079 Bang! Endrick took a fist by blocking with both arms held up, since he was unable to conjure a telekinetic wall on time due to another sound wave disruption. Krrrryycchhhh, a cracking sound rang out as Endrick's arms trembled as his body traveled across the air. Something broke, he said internally as he tried to stop the trembling. Finks in Yonda's form appeared right above him again, while sending another fist hurling downward. This one will put him out of commission for sure, she thought as her fist slammed heavily into Endrick in midair. Bang! Collision was made and shockwaves that caused even the ground below to split was created. She felt something wasn't quite right as Endrick's figure vanished right after receiving the blow. The green-scaled MBO officer that had been sending out the sound waves suddenly felt an intense chill down his spine as he turned around. However, it was too late as Endrick's hand was already around his throat. Shut up! Endrick voiced out as his grip tightened and he proceeded to twist. Krrrryycxchhhhh. Finks' eyes widened as she landed several hundred feet away. She was unable to stop the scene from playing out as she only spotted Endrick's figure when his hand was already locked around her teammate's throat. He broke his windpipe. Finks voiced with tone of disbelief. How is he there? He was here. I hit him twice. The situation did not make any sense to her. She couldn't understand how Endrick was here and suddenly there unaffected after what she did. What she didn't know was, Endrick had been replaced with a fake by Husarius before he received a single hit from Finks. Finks had actually been battling with a fake all this time while Endrick separated himself from the mix and circled back while hiding his presence before attacking the green-scaled MBO officer. He already knew it would be literally impossible for him to lay a finger on Finks if the green-scaled MBO officer kept disrupting him with the sound waves. But even though he broke Azai's windpipe, He doesn't know that Azai's has other ways of using his abilities. Just as this thought came to mind, several more cracking sounds rang out. KRRYKKHHKKK Endrick had proceeded to wrap the green-scaled MBO officer with his will and broke other parts of his body. His arms, legs, kneecaps, ribs, and a few other places, leaving Azai's unable to move. Plop! Azai's injured body fell to the ground, but he was still very much alive. Endrick turned to stare in Fink's direction at this point. Now it's gonna be just me and you, he stated. Her eyes turned even more serious at this point. I have only 1 more minute of mimicry left. I need to end it before time runs out. Both of them charged at each other in the next instant. Bang! 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 On another side, the sound of numerous clashes reverberated across the vicinity, as an exchange of blows ensued between Matilda and Shirama. Shirama was the biggest-sized person in the entire opposing group. She was looking more muscular than the twins, and she was taller than them as well, but she looked surprisingly beautiful with a long azure-colored hair. Matilda was currently completely clad in her silvery armor that she conjured initially. A massive silver-colored lance was also in her grasp, which she continuously used to clash with Shirama, who was almost twice her size. G. Matilda would stab her silvery lance forward occasionally with speed while also using several slashing techniques as well. It looked like they were evenly matched, as Shirama would dodge a few of these attacks while also sending forth hers, which would in turn cause several loud collisions. However, it was obvious that Shirama attacks carried more destructive power than Matilda's. Shirama had long claws which she used in slashing and countering Matilda attacks. These long blue claws were sturdy enough to collide with Matilda's lance without suffering any damage. In fact, they packed so much power that a single slash would send forth sharp energies that would rip through layers of the ground before making contact. Matilda's armor made it so she was able to tank some of the attacks. Bang! 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 Slash! Slash! Afterimages were left across the place as both of them kept sending forth attacks. Swoosh! Matilda ducked, evading an attack, and swooped towards the left before swinging out head lance once again. Shirama leaped upwards, dodging the swing, and slashed downwards as she descended. "You're no match for me!" she yelled out as her claws turned from blue to purple. She and chaotic arcs of sharp purplish energies slashed down from above towards Matilda in a bid to rip everything to shreds. Matilda raised her lance up, and it transformed into a wide silvery shield. Boom! The sound of collision reverberated across the vicinity, as the grounds split open and Matilda's frame sank with the destruction of the grounds. The ongoing battle was really a crazy one, and both sides were finding it difficult to defeat their opponents. Due to this, there was no opportunity to look for Angie or try to figure out where she was, as everyone was preoccupied with this. "They're really battling it out. How foolish!" Been voiced out as they watched from the screens within their isolated room. "They don't have a choice. It was an ambush," Elevra voiced in response with a disturbed tone. Maybe they're just playing. I want to join them," Sheila said with an excited tone. "Angie," Elevra muttered as she stared at a part of the screen. "Oh, do you know them?" Sheila questioned. "They're my friends. It's disturbing to watch them struggle like this, but I believe they can handle it." Elevra regained her calm as she watched. "They're not bad," Ben stated with an unbothered tone. "That boy is cute. Introduce him to me, Sheila said while staring at a particular part of the screens on display. "He's 13. Your advances would be considered an act of pedophilia," Elevra revealed. Chapter 1080. He's 13. Your advances would be considered an act of pedophilia, Elevra revealed. "I see. Make sure to introduce us properly when the time comes. The younger the better, Sheila responded with a mischievous grin on her face. Elevra. "Did she hear what I said?" "Looks like time's up," Ben stated, causing them to turn their faces to the area where the timer was counting down. 4 less than 5 seconds were left till the second phase would come to an end. "They'll have to continue their battle in the next one then," Elevra said in response while letting out a sigh of relief. The battle could really go either ways, but one sure thing was, a few of them from their group might end up losing. It was favorable that time ran out before the battle got to the point where anyone from the group lost. Since the battle began, only Endrick and E had managed to defeat one opponent each, causing 2 out of the opposition group to get disqualified. While this was good, there was no guarantee that they wouldn't lose people from their sides as well. Bang! Dark Falco and a gigantic serpentine mixed blood with human head clashed again for the umpteenth time before getting blasted in separate directions. I will rip you to shreds, scum! The dark tattoos on Dark Falco increased in length as his eyes glimmered with intense bloodlust. I will devour you! The serpentine mixed blood increased in size, turning his upper half even more muscular, and his snake half bigger. Swoosh! They both charged forward at this point as Dark Falco claws grew longer and sharper with dark mist emitting from them. His stretched his arms to the side as he leapt upwards and slashed in a tilted cross-like format. The opponent opened his mouth wide in a bid to swallow Dark Falco, and his attack up completely. While by the side another opponent placed his palm on the ground ready to unleash an attack should his teammate fail. However, the second phase of the selection has come to an end. Before collision could be made, a loud announcement rang out. Sing! 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 A flash of bright light engulfed every single person battling in the vicinity, and all across the unknown region as a whole. They disappeared in the next instant, causing the battles to cease. Huh! Falco, E, and the others let out surprised voices as they arrived in another waiting hall. The attack Dark Falco was about to use had been completely negated. Every other person involved in the battle earlier too who was about sending attacks or using any type of destructive ability discovered that it had been nullified. Fighting is not allowed in the waiting hall. Failure to comply will result in immediate disqualification. A loud voice resounded in across the place. Dark Falco tattoos slowly rescinded as Falco took back control before his alter ego could do anything stupid. Hey bastard! Let me destroy that lowlife! Give me control! Dark Falco kept yelling out to no avail. Falco was not about to let his alter ego be the cause for his disqualification. Are you guys okay? Ildris questioned as the group came together. Yeah, they answered together. Just a little bruise, Matilda said as she cleaned the blood at the side of her face. Ildris and Endrick had sustained minor injuries as well, considering their opponents were amongst the toughest in the entire opposing group. He was the only one who battled 2 opponents without sustaining a single damage during the time. Although he expended a lot of energy, and had been injured prior to the start of the group battle. Has anyone seen Angie? Falco questioned with a worried expression. We should ask them, Timmy said as he turned to the side where the group they had just fought with were standing. Yonda, Shirama, Finks and the others were also standing in a kind of encirclement like them, discussing. As they sensed the malice-filled glares coming from Falco and the others, they turned around as well. "I'm here, guys." A familiar feminine voice was heard from the other end, causing everyone to stare in the direction of the sound. "Angie!" Matilda yelled out with a look of relief and ran towards the owner of the voice. "TCH looks Alessandro and Sarah didn't manage to finish her off," Yonda said with a frustrated tone as he spotted the figure walking in their direction. "That's why the bastards are not here, she managed to take care of them both." Shirama had a look of disbelief as she voiced this out. "They shouldn't have underestimated her even though she was injured." Finks shook her head as she said with a low tone. "Are you okay?" Matilda voiced out with a look of worry as she arrived in front of Angie with the others. They all voiced out their worries before asking Angie what happened. Angie looked really beaten up, but it seemed like she had taken healing solutions as her looks were getting restored right before their very eyes. "TCH, not only did we lose Fildhor, but we also lost 3 others as well." The other twin lamented at the disqualification of his brother alongside the other 2 due to the battle as anger began to arouse within him. "If the battle had gone on for longer, we would have whittled out their numbers." The opposing group kept speaking with disappointed looks. "Calm down, guys. Angie said with a smile as they kept throwing questions at her. She stared at a particular direction and spotted the group responsible for setting them up. Hold on! Her smile disappeared as she squeezed out of their midst and began walking towards them. E and Eldris stared at her as she approached them. They didn't bother stopping her, knowing fights were not allowed here. Angie arrived before them and threw out an unyielding glare filled with intent. Chapter 1081. Hope and pray to your ancestors I never meet any of you in the next phase. If not, I promise you'll be meeting them untimely. Angie seemed very Angie as she spouted out these words, causing everyone to stare in her direction with shock. Ugh! Do you really think you're strong enough to take any of us on? Ire states with an unyielding glint in his eyes. We shall see, Angie stated in response before turning around. Don't be surprised if the battle ends before you realize it. Her voice trailed off as she closed in on her teammates. We're just as pissed about what happened, but yours seem worse, Falco said with a bothered tone as Angie arrived before them once more. Angie's frown deepened as she heard this. What they did was unforgivable, and I will find a way to make them pay. They were about to ask Angie to narrate her side of the encounter when a loud announcement reverberated across the waiting hall. The table of points for the previous phase will now be displayed. After this announcement played out, a number of holographic screens appeared in mid-air all across the waiting hall. On these screens, the table of scores for the previous phase was displayed. Every participant proceeded to check for their scores on this point table. Asbestos F. 2900 Rosalind V. 2850 Inudel. 2850 Eldris R. 2750 Emmanuel E. 2750 Endrick O. 2750 Dash. Man, some of these guys are real beats. Just how many of the mixed breeds did they slay? Dash. Damn it! I can't find my name amongst the top hundreds. Dash. There seems to be only 200 names listed on the table when we're well over 400 participants. How am I at 101? I was so sure I'd be amongst the top 10 at least. Voices of confusion, elation, and disbelief rang out in the background as the participants checked the scoreboard. Some of them were really surprised that some participants managed to acquire over 2,000 points. Since a lot of them worked alone, they had to deal with mixed breeds they could handle, which were around level 80 to 89. This would ultimately grant them around 30 to 100 points per kill, but of course they couldn't discard of such mixed breeds instantly, so it would still take time to accumulate points. If they wanted to deal with mixed breeds around the level of 90 and above, which would grant them points ranging from 300 to 700 per kill, it would take a lot of time to kill just one since they were by themselves. Even if the participant was powerful enough, there were still factors like recovering energy, and the likes that would ultimately slow them down after they managed to take one down. Given the timer, it would still be very difficult for a powerful lone mixed blood to get up to 2,000 points, but one of them managed to get almost 3,000 points, proving just how strong he was. Eldris and the others were also being talked about. It could be determined that they worked together, seeing as they all got the same number of points, but the other participants were shocked at how many powerful mixed breeds they had to kill to accumulate that many points, since the points were split amongst them equally after every kill. Since we're this high on the scoreboard, they're most likely beneath us, Timmy voiced as he also spotted his name. Looks like they stopped hunting for mixed breeds to hunt for us instead. Eldris shook his head at the shallowness of the opposing MBO team. But they're strong. Besides their unnecessary want for conflict, some of them would really be a great addition to the main force for ISOP, Falco admitted. Indeed, but with such mindset, cooperation will almost be an impossibility, and carrying such shallowness personalities might hinder since we don't know what we will encounter at ISOP, Eldris stated. Power isn't everything. I remember losing badly to my brother every time we fought after he became strong because of my shallowness. Despite my strength, I could never overcome. Endrick voiced out as well while recalling his flaws. They're still in for now, Angie said with a look of dissatisfaction. Sing. 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 Participants began to disappear very quickly, causing the number of people in the waiting hall to dwindle. In the next few seconds, only 200 participants were left. The hall that already looked very spacious due to its massiveness despite it holding over 400 people now looked even more spacious than before. The numbers had practically been halved now that only 200 participants were left. Everyone left in the massive hall had managed to stay in the top 200 with the points they gathered in the last phase. "Yep, they're still here," Rhea stated. "As expected, now we just need to see what the next phase holds for us." Eldris responded with a look of interest. "The final phase of the selection will be starting shortly." The voice was heard once more, and everyone turned to stare at a direction in the hall as golden light gleamed from up ahead. A platform opened up below, and two people appeared from within. One was dressed in an all-white outfit, and the other was dressed in a green laboratory wear. "The final phase of the selection will be based on 3 things," the man in white voiced out. Everyone recognized this voice to be that of the person who had been making announcements since. He didn't bother introducing himself, which led everyone to believe he was just in charge of the selection. "First, your bloodline rank, second, your bloodline potential, and third, your current overall strength based on the first 2. He proceeded to voice out next. This caused everyone's faces to lit up with interest as they wondered how the final phase was gonna be. "Zuyuyanen." The golden glow they spotted up ahead turned into a kind of booth and opened up. One after the other you will be stepping into the analysis booth. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.